Okay, I'm like when I'm picking my nose or something, and it's like right.
We're live
That's right
right
when it
now.
starts. Oh, perfect, perfect.
Perfect.
Yep.
Perfect.
Well-oiled machine.
Well,
That
oil
is.
machine.
We are
Absolutely.
all three cogs in a well-oiled machine. I will say,
Yes.
Totally.
perfectly balanced as all things should be. Three cogs in the machine.
Welcome everybody to this week's Keys to the Geekdom episode. Today I am with my good buddies Nonsurplus and Aggrobacon, and we are doing part 2 of our Halo Infinite episode, with the focus today being on the campaign, which we're
And
all.
I'll be providing live updates on HCS Kickoff Rally.
Yes. Um, Tim could be our official esports commentator as well while we do our episode today.
We're currently in round 5 of FaZe versus United. Loser goes home. Winner goes to face Cloud9 in the grand finals. It is Slayer on Aquarius.
Oh,
Excellent,
I'm just
excellent.
tweeting out our episode right now, and
Ooh.
we
Yes,
are out there. Perfect.
and
Oh,
as a fair warning to all viewers, I myself have not quite finished the campaign. There will be spoilers. I have already spoiled myself to the end. We will be talking about spoilers here. Um,
yes.
Phil's really into teasing the edge play.
Today we are having spoilers, and I asked him to put spoilers in the title of the episode, but I will edit that afterwards.
Perfect.
But
That's why I announced it now. I
good.
announced it now.
And I also put it in a tweet as well, saying we are talking spoilers. But before we do that, originally, the first thing, well, first of all, who are you guys? Just share a little about yourself for anyone that might have not came last week or does not know us yet.
Aggro, if you wanna start. I
Sure.
started last time, so I feel like somebody should start.
Okay. I'm Aggrobacon, also known as Tim TK. I'm a comic book writer and editor, and I also stream on Twitch, mostly Destiny and Halo content now, as well as some Star Wars stuff.
I am Phil, aka Nonsurplus. I don't really do a lot of content creation. I'm mainly just a big friend of Zeb's and Tim's, so that's mainly how I got into this mess. So maybe eventually one day I will be making content, and you will say I remember the day that Phil was there, but it's mostly going to be looking back and laughing just how dumb I really was. So smile and look forward. That's how you gotta aim.
And I am Brooke or Seb. I've started a show about a year ago or so as a way to talk about fun stuff with my friends and meet new people, as well as hopefully have my guests make new friends while talking about interesting topics that they both are interested in. And we talked about comics, we talked about films, we talked about video games, etc. Here, all sorts of nerdy things and geeky things, and I'm also a giant Yellow fan, so I'm excited to talk about the campaign. So, I did write for us our relationship with Halo, but we kind of already went into that last week.
I
Yes.
mean,
So,
I guess it. If we want to just talk about like briefly like the campaign, I guess it makes sense because it was mainly just relationship with like the Halo multiplayer.
yeah. So
Um,
yeah, let's do relationship with the campaign. Sure.
I mean, it's not like a big difference, but
Yeah. Well, I keep it brief. I feel like keep it all brief for this section just because we went so in depth last time with. But sure, but I go first, then Phil, then Tim. Kind of
Sure.
Tim,
opposite
you
way.
then Tim, then me, because I went first every single time last time, so I'll
Fortune.
go last.
Phil
I'll go
talks
last.
for an hour straight,
Sure. Sure.
recapping every Halo storyline up until this point, including Extended Universe.
Like all the
Well, I will be mentioning Extended Universe because I did watch Little Legends last night.
Nice.
So, and by last night, I mean like 3 a.m. because I do not sleep for the life of me.
This
That's-
morning you mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's. I was recapping yesterday's HCS matches from last night about that same time because I was at. It's not my Instagram story, but I was at a mixed martial arts event
Hmm.
supporting people from my gym
Nice.
until super late. So I had to catch up on HCS before the games today.
Nice. My relationship with the story, though, is that, as I said before, my first interaction with Halo was for the multiplayer, for the map Sand Trap and Halo 3 and Elephant, and that worked to me. But for me, I think I remember playing them in order of Halo 1, Halo 2, Halo 3. And I played Halo 1 and 2 first, and years after they came out. And for me, it was a combination of the universe and the music that really drew me in. I found the music incredibly intoxicating, beautiful, and just this mystery, especially with the forerunners of its ancient civilization. And then later on, put out a wikis and learning about the Spartans and my own medical history and the drama they went through. I felt a deep personal connection with them that has lasted for over 14, 15 years now. And it's still my favorite series in the world. I love it. It has had bumps and whatnot, but I think Infinite's a very good return to form, in my opinion. But that's very quick summary on my side. Tim?
Yeah. Kind of so like I said, my first experience with Halo was actually the multiplayer demo for Combat Evolved on GameSpy before Steam. So date myself there a little bit, but yeah, I've played through every campaign. I've gone through most on Legendary. I think I've gone through all of them on at least Heroic.
Same.
Love the yeah, for me it's just the world too, the way they built like the mystery of the Forerunners, as well as the amount of just raw tough person energy in the series. I'm very much into.
Like Doom guy.
Yeah, it's a world where there are 50 Doom guys. And also like they do also represent people with disabilities as being just as tough as Doom guy, and the fact that it's people of like every gender and creed, and it's very cool to see a world where like everyone is tough. But and the amount of one of the great things about multiplayer that I think a lot of people have is the random wacky moments that can happen. Like now, grappling onto a banshee over the edge of the map and getting a kill because he boots someone out over like Dead Space. But like the lore set up in such a way that events like that happen in canon too, and so that's.
Does it completely not spoiler, but generally think like one thing I did love about the campaign before you talked, Phil, and I also want to mention it, and one or two more little things as well quickly that Tim made me think of, but is that I learned how not to kill a Marines when you deliver a wasp, and that is you grapple onto the wasp before it lands.
It's midair.
Yes.
Nice.
And then the Marine survives.
Okay. Yeah.
That's actually news to me because yeah, I every single time I've tried, always landed on somebody. So it's like, okay.
They're better in some ways. Other ways, they still want it. They're so easy to get into the vehicle. They just think by standing under it, they will immediately get in. And they do touch it first.
Yeah.
They do that, but...
Yes, the brain chunks get into it first.
The other two things, though, quickly, that I want to point out of the original thing, or... No, you know what, Phil, you go ahead, then I would add one more thing to expressions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you done? Are you done, Tim? I don't want to.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. For myself, I started out playing Halo 2 multiplayer, just customs with buds. I didn't actually play any of the original campaign until after I played through Halo 2's campaign about half a year after I started playing multiplayer. But I freaking loved Halo 2's campaign. It's so good. I played through Halo 1's campaign. Real good. I never was. I'm too casual to play them on heroic or legendary. Way too casual for that, but I enjoyed it. Except for Reach's campaign, I played Halo 3's. I skipped ODST because I did not have a copy of it, and by the time that I was going to get ready to play it, I ended up getting my own Xbox and purchased Halo Reach. And I played through Halo Reach's campaign probably about 18 times now.
Oh yeah, same.
So good.
Fucking, I love
Halo
Reach's
3's
campaign.
Halo 3's campaign is also phenomenal. It definitely deserves probably. It is probably the number 1 or number 2 campaign for Halo in general. A lot of people debate on whether or not it's the best or not. I for one enjoyed it.
It between
a lot.
3 and 2.
Yeah.
I think. You know.
I think 2 just holds a special place in my heart, and that's why I hold it above, because it was the first campaign I played through. And then again, Reach, spent a lot of time playing Reach because that was the only Halo game that I had myself. Then I got Combat Evolved, the Anniversary Edition on 360. After playing through Reach a couple of times, I tried it. It's a lot different playing on the 360 versus the original Xbox for some reason, the original Xbox. For some reason, it was too different for me, and I couldn't quite play through it. I did love a lot. I got like halfway through the campaign on the Anniversary Edition. Got Master Chief Collection through Game Pass, and I went through and played Combat Evolved Anniversary, Halo 2 Anniversary, and Halo 3. Once again, I missed ODST. Feel really bad.
Do that now, though.
Yeah, we're doing that right now. We are doing that now, and it is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But I played Halo 4's campaign with the Master Chief Collection.
What do you think?
We will talk about that. This is all about. So we're going to be talking about Infinite's campaign today instead of that. So I guess.
We could do a lot of that, but still.
It had its moments.
Yep.
But it was definitely a lot weaker, especially after having just played through 1, 2, 3, and not Reach because I played through that so many times.
Yep.
But having played through 1, 2, and 3, and it's like it was not. It didn't feel as good. There was a lot of moments where I was like, I can't. I had to put it down. It had some really fun moments though. But when I tried 5, it was basically all the bad moments of 4, and I never even finished the campaign.
5 is a disaster of a story.
I got like.
I'm sorry.
I played the first like 5 missions of 5, or first 5 or 6 missions, and I every single time I would die, I'd just be like, well, you know what? I'm not really. I didn't buy the game, so it's not like I was wasting money because it was somebody else. So I was like, well, I mean, it didn't feel good. Playing through Infinite has definitely rekindled a lot of the positive feelings that I had. A lot of the feelings that I had with the great moments of Reach. It reminds me a lot of some really fun. There's a lot of times where I'm like, oh, this is just like in Halo 3, where it's like, oh, you're going through this, and it's like there's a lot of that return to form, as you've mentioned, that is just so well done, and it takes a lot of the good aspects of 4 and then improves on it with leaving almost all of the bad aspects from 4 and 5 just far behind. So it's just as far as like story goes, it's been a lot. Like it's actually been really fun. It's been really neat kind of here. And also, I mean, I do like the lore about all of the Banished and stuff. Like that kind of stuff is cool, and that kind of stuff, and like the Forerunners and the Banished and all that stuff from like 4 and 5 that they talk about. It's all right. 5's less so because there were some really dumb moments, and there was a retcon that I cannot remember for the life of me what it was that I really didn't like. But 4 and 5 were kind of like the imposters. It feels like with this return to the Infinite, return to form with Infinite. So it feels like 4 and 5 are kind of imposters that brought some good mechanical changes.
Yep.
But other than that, we're kind of meh.
Yeah.
There's a few cool moments, you know. I will even mess with 5. One thing that you just made me think of, Tim, right? Is even like the level on Meridian, where Osiris' team is with civilians, and you see the civilians fighting. I don't know, that's the tiny part of me that kind of liked seeing that. Like, I wish we had Marines in that game, and it annoys me that we never saw one single bloody Marine the whole game. But what you said of, like, everyone is a badass in some way. And it's not like on steroids like in Warhammer. But, you know, it's just the fact that, you know, for 25 years, or by that point, I guess they'd be like 30 years, right? Pretty much all of humanity was facing this, you know, this alien threat. So it made sense that everybody got prepared.
Mm.
So it made sense that these civilian workers are all kind of trained in firearms, and you gotta see a weird way of representation of the, you know, toughness that humanity had to, I don't know, the armor that they had to cover themselves in to survive.
The hardships that they endured.
Yeah.
Especially because, I mean, again, at this point, I mean, they had a war with the Covenant for 25
years at least.
Yeah, at least 25 years. 20 probably ended up being close to like 27, 28 years.
Yeah.
But they've been at war for so long. I mean, it's kind of like they had to adapt at some point.
Yeah, and like there's other series like that. And you know, I mentioned Warhammer. I mentioned what I think of is like Gears. Tim, go ahead.
We have an update from today's HCS events. United has beat FaZe, going 50-43 in Slayer. So United will rematch with Cloud9 in the ground finals.
Wait, it was 54-3?
50-43.
Oh, 50-43. Okay. I was like, it was 54-3?
No, it's not. I don't know if we've ever seen a blowout that bad in finals.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's. How did FaZe even get that far? If that was...
Yeah, so it's if United wins the series, they'll force a bracket reset and rematch Cloud9 again. If Cloud9 wins this one, then that'll be the second loss for United, and they'll be eliminated, making Cloud9 the champions for the HCS season kickoff.
Nice. But like the other example, I think of a Gears of War where literally over 50 years humanity was in constant war to the point that everybody became like buff warriors, and then they had a 2 or like even almost like 70 or 90 years, I think. They're like, you know, past few generations of the same war, and then they had 2 weeks break, and then the load disappeared, and they had 14 more years of war and near extinction. So, but again, that's kind of like on steroids. I've heard the soap up; it's a little ridiculous, but no. The series always had this, you know, delve in a little bit realistic in some ways, at least aesthetically. You know, what it could be like 600, 500 years from now. You know, always loved the UNSC ships. They felt very practical in many ways. You know, and it always had these big kind of conversations, especially, even with Halo 1, but especially past Halo 2, you know, with even faith and, you know, I think Zionism and just being too connected to, you know, one idea with the covenant, the prophets, and, you know, or do any even saw like hard topics in this campaign that made you question who's really the bad guy, who's the good guy. You know, it's not really black and white with any of this. And then you also have those badass one-liners and moments, such as Johnson in Halo 2.
The grunts in this game,
Oh,
phenomenal.
grunts.
All the
They're so
grunt
good.
dialogue, all the grunt dialogue is amazing. So
I will admit though, one of my most favorite badass lines in the game is less really badass, a badass moment in any Halo game period, right? It's Rage in Tip of the Spire when you jump off that communication building and you're the Falcon with Carter and George, and George like backgrounds in atmosphere, and Carter's we gotta get their attention somehow. A to see the Grafton come in, shoot that Mac, and then the super carrier eliminates that frigate, and they're in panic. But I doubt this series is. It's just hard topics, but also just amazing moments either you do yourself or you see on screen, I think.
like again what we recently revisited when in 3 when Master Chief delivers the bomb.
Oh no, 2.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that was 2.
Yeah,
Sorry.
2.
In 2,
Yeah.
when he delivers the bomb, because I don't know why I was thinking 3 because we never actually played 3 together.
I'd love to do that. I'd love that.
That would be fun. That'd be a lot
That'd
of fun.
be
But yeah, and when he delivers the bomb, that's just it's such a cool moment, and also the fact that they're remastering it, it was like
It looks beautiful. I like Lord Hood's like asking Master Chief, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "Give it a coveted Butler bomb." And just citizens themselves. And then just landing on the frigate at Johnson. For Brick, he flew pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta love Johnson. Miss him.
No.
But no, the series always had such amazing moments, and I don't know where to start really with Infinite, but first impressions, like, I do say I really loved it. Like, I'll say partly for, since the game only been out for about a week and a half or so, before we do real spoilers, because we're going to mostly the total spoilers, I think, I'll just say, do you recommend it to people?
Yes. Highly.
As far as like mechanics wise, 100%. As far as story wise, 100%. Just in general, if you're looking for a Halo game that returns to form with added benefits of extra movement, more maneuverability, much more modern feel, but also not like taking away the classic Halo feel.
Yes.
It's a very, very strong balance between the modern Halo and the classic Halo, with all the movement and movability, so you actually feel like you can get around at a fairly high speed too. Swinging from trees with your grapple hook is probably one of my favorite things to do.
And right in time for Spider-Man.
Yes.
Yeah.
I told someone jokingly, I'm like, Halo Infinite is the best open world Spider-Man game to come out this year.
Yep. Well, Miles Morales I heard was pretty good.
It's good. It does talk someone that just to troll them, but
And I gotta play that story.
I kind of halfway stand by it though, given that I do like Halo more than Spider-Man, so it's like, but actually, yeah.
I want to point out also what you said at the very interesting comment of, a nice mixture of classic and new, right? But the other thing is that, like, the open world nature of the game, right? They took from Bungie and not from Destiny.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm saying is they took it from the original concept for Halo Combat Evolve in 01.
Yeah.
Oh.
Which was they originally, I'm not sure if they were like the very first concept was supposed to be like RTS, because I know there's models that kind of.
So from what I understand from what they had said, some of the developer documentary was that they wanted it originally to be a third-person adventure game.
Right. Okay.
But they turned it into an action game, and then Microsoft said, "Well, then you have to make it first-person because first-person shooters are hot right now."
Okay.
Yeah.
But no,
Well, Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say. Well, it ended up turning into one of the best, or one of the strongest first-person shooter series of all time.
agreed.
And still very strong, apparently. More news from the competitive circuit. So
Right.
this is going to be the biggest season for competitive Halo in terms of prize pools, events, and attendees as well as teams involved. This was the biggest event to date for competitive Halo
Mm-mm.
in terms of like the amount of space that we get. They sold out the entire Raleigh Convention Center,
Ah,
and they had 272 teams competing.
damn.
And they get the news back that the first day alone set the record for cumulative most viewed Halo event. So
Wait,
adding in,
of all time?
yeah. So Halo now is bigger than it was, at least for the time being, than it was back in Halo 3, which is insane to think about.
Like, I mean, especially because the downfall of 4 and 5, as
Yeah.
far as competitive scene, and
I'm shocked.
Yeah.
I'm happy, but I'm shocked.
Yeah, it's nuts.
So wait, are we entering a new golden age of Halo again?
We might be. And I'm so stoked.
that would be
Oh,
pretty
that's
sweet.
awesome.
It's like, so for the first time in like 6 years or 9 years, something like that, on the main stage we had Pistola, Snipe Down, and Flame Sword on competitive teams. Which, if anyone has watched a Halo montage on YouTube, is probably from one of those three guys.
Do you think we'll have more custom games then? As soon as Force comes back, do you think the community will come back together?
Oh, yeah, there's already talks about it. Like, there's guys saying like what they want to do with Forge and all that stuff, and there's gonna be a bunch of like pro support for it as well.
So we'll have custom game parties again with the community.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Holy shit, we might actually be entering a new golden age of Halo.
Yeah.
Damn. I'm happy. But let's go to the story, guys. We kind of, I think, talked a lot about the series, but the story itself, I loved it. I'm just gonna put out right there, right now.
Yeah.
I say, I would have talked about Cortana at the end, by the way. Put it out there now.
That was fun.
Let's go with the pilot, kind of chief, Escharum, weapon, Carpenter, Cortana.
Binger?
Okay? So, pilot, and kind of just the opening of the game of, first, that scene, it did a few moments, but I freaking loved the scene of the Infinity being rammed.
Yeah.
It's bloody beautiful. I'm a little, like, I get why the Infinity's gone, and I want to talk about it later with you guys, but I will miss that ship a little bit. I think get from a story perspective why it's gone, totally, and I even agree with it, but I will miss it. But, there's Chief fighting Atriots in the beginning.
Yeah.
Bloody heck. What do you guys think of that? I thought to ask before we really go to the pilot. Opening.
The entire opening sequence, like, and then it just, I felt so hyped watching that, and then you got to the actual, like, dropping off the ship and being able to actually, like, move around and stuff. I'm like, oh, this feels so right. You just get built up, and then it feels so good going through that first mission. I think that's the moment where like 343 kind of wrote that entire sequence as like a love letter to Halo, and you're like, okay, we're destroying this fragment of Halo 5, Halo 4 and 5. That one's kind of like with. We're bringing in something from Halo Wars 2, which the community actually really liked, and we're starting new with it all. So this is you on the ground with a sequence very similar to the start of Halo 1.
Yeah.
So if it was kind of done as a love letter for 343, and people are like, okay, we're starting new, soft reboot, it's official. Like if you don't need to touch previous Halos, this is the start of new Halo.
Yep. And also there was this say when it was no, yeah, Phil, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say and just in terms of story start, this is about it's about 5 months, right? 5 months between Halo Wars 2 and
I think.
yeah, it's like 5 months between Halo Wars 2 and the start of Infinity, because Halo Wars 2 is the is the closest we have to it, I think. Um,
Well, in the
I
games,
can't,
yes. In the lore, no.
right, because there is the books and stuff that,
Yeah,
that
we have a mission in Reach that Blue Team goes to.
oh that's yes, because that's
For
when
a
they've
few
gone
months.
to, because what I if I remember correctly, and please correct me because I have not read the books myself. I did some research, and I mean you can't trust everything you read on the internet.
Of course.
Oh, but Mission Reach, that's when they go back to Reach to try and I believe that's when they go back, or they send Blue Team, right?
Yeah.
They send Blue Team down to try and oh god, I can't actually remember the exact premise, but
Operation Wolf.
they send them Operation Wolf.
I'm looking at it now. It's created to interrupt the Milky Way.
It wasn't a rescue mission, right? Because it's basically
No.
which one's the rescue? One of the books is a
You're
rescue
thinking
mission.
of Reach. You're thinking after the fall of Reach,
Yeah.
multiple Spartan 2s were with Halsey at Castle Base, and they were rescued.
Okay.
Sadly, most of them died before they made it back to Earth, but they were taken off Reach. So
Yeah. They were
Yeah.
saved from Reach. They died after, but they were saved from Reach.
yeah,
But yeah, that all takes place because I think they were trying to. If
they're
I'm correct,
trying to
that
find
was
a
the
way
one.
to beat Cortana
Yeah.
at the time, and
Yeah,
they wanted to retrieve remaining clone brains of Cortana to create the weapon. I'm looking at the wiki
Right.
right now, and now it is. I want to
Right.
read that book, but
I
so and that
I watched like a summary video of all the start stuff that happened between 5 and Reach.
Okay.
Just kind of because I mean that was the last games, and I haven't played Halo Wars 2. I've heard really good things
game.
about it.
Really
I've heard
good.
it's actually really good,
It really
but I
is.
have not played it.
And that is
Uh,
2 months before I guess that opening cutscene, and then
okay.
we have 6 months until Chief wakes up from that opening cutscene, and we do the proper campaign.
Okay.
So
Okay. So we know that they developed the weapon.
yeah,
We know that they developed the weapon because that's the whole entire premise of the first real mission. Really. But that opening cutscene,
mhm,
just from that to there, it's so neat actually seeing how they. I don't know. It's a lot different from what I was ever expecting it to be
Yeah.
after seeing 4 and 5 and how they played out. I will say I liked 4's opening cutscene.
same.
Where you're on the crash or the ruin of the ship. That was actually pretty neat. I
Yeah.
like that.
Same here.
But
Did multiple missions from 4 has they do kind of enjoy.
yeah, again,
Yeah.
it's not all bad. It's just all in general. Overall, it was a very weak Halo.
Yeah.
It's not Halo 5.
No, but
It's
no.
not Halo. It's
Yeah.
not Halo 5.
Halo 5, I can't think of really any campaign that
I mean,
I
hey,
really enjoyed.
Yeah, like I said last week, Halo 5 had Nathan Fillion, and then it blocked out.
Yeah, and I love Nathan Fillion, so if I don't like something with Nathan Fillion, that's going to be
Yeah.
hard.
Also, just like Nathan Fillion and Laura Bailey, both of which I absolutely love them both, but I could not.
Yeah. I've been watching A Rookie for the past couple of years with Nathan Fillion. Love that show.
Oh, good.
But yeah, then as Tim was mentioning, like that transition feel, like when you actually go through the whole entire process, when you wake up, and you make your way over, like the whole entire process just feels so smooth. And the moment that you get in control, it's like the transition is the transitions are so well done, just in general.
And it's so much respect, too, like the way Chief moves of lightly pushing a Marine away, you know?
And like he's just, I mean, he shows some reverence, and that's like, it's very difficult. And from a technical standpoint, I'm a very technical person, so from a very technical standpoint, it is very difficult to animate that. Very difficult to animate that. But they went through, they got that all, and it looks like it was, I mean, they rendered that, but it was still animated,
Mhm.
and it was very well done. So even from a technical standpoint, it's so impressive how they actually managed to do that. And I mean, you can use mocap and you can use all that, but zero grav mocap, that's from a technical standpoint, that's very difficult to do. I mean, Microsoft has all the money to throw at it, so they could have done a zero grav mocap, but it looks more like it was actually just well animated.
Like hand keyed, yeah.
Yeah, versus using mocap. And I mean, the rest, there's a lot of mocap. There's a lot of times you can see, oh, this is obviously mocap. But just in general, that sequence, that whole entire sequence it looks almost like it was completely just animated and by hand. So there was a lot of talent that was put into that. You can tell there's a lot of talent put into that. There was a lot of love that was put into that.
Oh, yeah.
Because just the overall experience, so good. So good.
I think it's too early for me to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. Is that while there have been complaints that have been going back and forth, I think a lot with the community of, this definitely should have stayed in the oven for another 6 months, because people either want Forge, now, or co-op campaign or whatever, right? Or not enough maps, or classic weapons, or vehicles, or whatever it is, I will say that campaign, I think they yearly took extra when a lot to campaign.
Yeah.
Oh,
and
you
it
can tell.
definitely shows.
If you look at the original, their original preview video or whatever that they put out, there is such a significant improvement, and they took the feedback that they received from the community to heart, and you can tell that with the campaign. And while I have some stuff that I will talk about campaign that I have some gripes with.
Yep.
Overall, it is definitely the best campaign we have had since Reach or 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love the Reach campaign. I love the Reach campaign.
Depending on your preference, if you're a 3 kid or a Reach kid.
Yeah. But it takes all the. I mean, again, compared to 4 and 5, this is like god tier compared to 4 and 5.
Yeah.
So 5 especially, but compared to 4 and 5's campaign, it is god tier.
You know what? I'm glad this. But I might say it might be a little bit of blasphemy here, but no. I'm about to think. I think this is the best campaign we've had.
This is the best campaign.
No, not that. But what I'm gonna say is, look. Like I said, I got it because of 3, but I really played a lot of Reach. I adored Reach. I loved Reach. But I've always kind of felt that quality-wise, the best campaign has always been 2. It's kind of like Star Wars, where, I can say my favorite Star Wars movie is most of the time either New Hope or Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
But from a technical standpoint, I can tell, no matter what comes out, right, Empire Strikes Back is the best film in my mind, just from a story perspective. And Halo 2, I always feel is a similar in the sense of you have to arbiter, you have them questioning the prophets, you have them rebelling, and they're different. I'm not sure if I've fully seen a whole entire campaign, but there's definitely a lot of moments I feel within the story where you're nearing that. Too, especially with the brutes and their story, in my opinion.
My favorite thing about the Banished is the fact that they do a lot to humanize aspects of Covenant culture, and because for some of the other ones outside of the elites or the Zanheeli, they don't just oh, they're all just this one monolithic group of religious fanatics. But when they do Aatrox's story in Halo Wars 2, where they explain that he's got really fed up with them being used as cannon fodder, essentially.
Yeah.
And then he talks about how he was able to essentially build a group that's no, we're all going in a weird way support and respect each other.
I mean, the thing is, the Banished also include humans.
Yes.
You don't see any of that in you
yeah.
don't see that in Infinite. But just as far as actual
the lore-wise, yeah.
They include humans, because even though I can't remember, is it the who is it? There's a group of them, the Covenant, for instance, members who are more associated with the Covenant. are very anti-human.
Yeah.
But Aatrox is even just like, no, I mean, just let them join. They're sick and tired of dying. They're sick and tired of it too. I mean,
Yeah.
if they support the cause, then let them. And I
Yeah.
mean, it's if you got to give a man, a raving, genocidal maniac.
That's it. They're very okay with torture even on their own people. So like I'm not sure if like they're the best people, but at least they're like
They have standards.
yeah.
We may not be the best, most morally, least morally ambiguous, very straightforward, but we still have standards, and that's the important thing. That's the important thing.
There is a thing of that is very true, and there's something I've always, and this is not really about different, but doesn't complain about the Atrios itself, right? A portion of his story that I think is still missing, where I read the Rise of Atrios comic years ago, right? And still go backward once in a while. And I remember the third issue, they were still, forming a band as recruiting him. And he found a skirmisher scientist, and he made some device to control the buggers. If you remember them from Halo 2 and 3 and OTSD, and he's like, no, we do not enslave people. That is what the Covenant does. No.
Mm-hmm.
And then you look at the profiles for Halo Wars 2, that certain portions of its army are literally being tortured and almost slaves, pretty much. So, while Atrios still has standards, some of them have definitely lessened over time, and I'm curious, how did that happen?
Yeah.
It'd be interesting kind of to see an arc covered.
Yeah, I'd like to see whether we do get more books about that side story, because that's the whole thing they had said where the Covenant has been at war with humanity for about the same amount of time with the Banished, and nearly wiped humanity out, and they haven't got close to the Banished.
I remember that.
So yeah, I'd be interested to see some of the book about how does essentially what was a ragtag group manage to beat what was the galactic superpower at the time.
Yeah.
And I'm also going to say this is because we don't. I don't think we ever even see him, but Arbiter from Halo 2 and 3. I do want to see him return in either DLC or something.
He will come.
At least he has
gotta
to.
come.
Gotta. Co-op campaign has to include him. I'm gonna say.
We gotta I keep on wanting go to different parts, but we gotta let's just go to the pilot. I'm gonna go back to Arbiter later. I promise.
Okay. No, I know. I just wanted to mention that because that's something that's been on my mind ever since I started playing with.
Agreed.
I want to see Arbiter. I may be a child, reminding myself or those childhood memories of Halo 2 and 3, but by golly, I do want to see.
Yes.
There's definitely. Go ahead, Tim.
I was saying all the things that we're so excited for. We got all these assets for New Mombasa that I really want to go back to. But I think what's really interesting is coming back to Halo after being a Destiny player for so long and being used to the annual content release package and seeing when you play through Halo's campaign, you realize that's kind of what they set up here for is for the installed packages to be put onto this one thing.
And so that it was going to be going on for
and it makes me very excited. We're going to get a lot of Halo out of this. It's not going to come out once, but they're going to build up things where you're just going to be I want to see that so bad, and they're going to be all right, next year in this package, here's this.
No, we're gonna. I guarantee there's hints of I guarantee we're not gonna see the end of Locke. There's still aspects of Halo 4 and 5, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or last year even Palmer. I know a lot of people do not like Palmer, but at least last year Locke, right?
Yeah.
None of them were bad characters. People enjoying them, their movies and their stuff. It's just in a game, the script sucked, and the character was not portrayed well.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that they did not just kill Locke off in a campaign, what they easily had opportunity to, shows there's still a story to tell there. And I bet you will see Arbiter, we'll see multiple other people.
We're going to be seeing more of the pilot, I guarantee it. We're going to be seeing, there's going to be more to do with him. In fact, I'm sure we're going to have a story that's based around him because he had such an emphasis as being and I mean, this is not necessarily a spoiler, but this is kind of just a commentary, slight commentary on the co-op, the single player campaign. But he was basically Master Chief's connection to humanity.
Yeah, that's something I want to get to at some point in the when we get into like the writing of the story. But the fact that this is the first time I think in a Halo campaign where you've had 3 major characters have a full like arc and change.
Yeah.
Also, we're getting ready to set in for the grand finals.
Nice.
Cloud9 United, it is best of 7. Again, if Cloud9 wins, they're champions. If United wins, they do a bracket reset and must beat Cloud9 one more time.
All right, so
I feel like we've kind of been a little bit off topic, but
yeah,
just as
absolutely.
far as
But-
I guess let's do return.
Yep.
I guess I'll finish my thoughts off about the pilot.
yeah,
Just
go with the
as
pilot.
far as the character goes, I had mentioned that he's kind of Master Chief's linked to humanity, and that we'll talk more about that when we talk about the actual writing of the story. But just
Mm.
as far as what the role that he plays is very interesting. And the reason why I say that is because he's never. I mean, he has less screen time than the weapon.
Yep.
But I feel like he has actually more of an overall impact to the story. He's the
Yeah.
man who saves Master Chief. He's the man who saves Master Chief. He's the man who shows Master Chief that not everybody he becomes vulnerable with Master Chief. Like he shows Master Chief like, hey, I am basically like slight spoiler warning for anybody.
Yeah,
but
we're officially in spoiler territory now.
we
people,
are well into spoiler territory now. But
Yeah.
he's like, I'm not even a Marine. I'm just a guy who happened to be here. I stole this pelican because I was afraid. I'm not as like
Mhm.
strong as you. And then Master Chief's like, well, I don't know what to say. I'm just a brooding guy. I don't deal with emotions. And the weapon's like, hey, let me talk with him for a sec. And then he's like, well, I mean, I know that. I mean, he just has such a really interesting emotional arc.
He does.
And while I don't know the very end of it because I haven't seen it myself, again, I have not quite finished the campaign. Spoiled myself to it a little bit, but when he talks to Master Chief, I did kind of see a little bit of the ending. But when he talks with Master Chief and lets him know his name, it's kind of like him saying, "Hey, like I mean, I think that I'm able to take on the role that I need to be." It's just really interesting. I don't know what you guys have to say about that. And again, I feel bad because I haven't quite seen that final scene, so I feel like I'm making some semi inaccurate statements here. But it's just really interesting to see how he kind of goes from this role of fear and just like when he sees Master Chief, he's like hope that he's ready to go home. He's able to leave and finally be able to just he's able to go home and not have to worry about it. And then the chief says like, "Hey, no, we have to stay here." He's like, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But he's still that person who's just he's still afraid, and you can definitely hear that throughout. And then finally he goes to this role of like talking with the chief, becoming vulnerable, and then he's like, okay, I guess I'm willing to accept the role that I need to be in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just really interesting. Again, I feel like he has one of the more it's not unexplored, but I feel like there's some parts that I want to see more of him, and that's why I'm hoping, and why it seems like there's going to be more of an actual story that's going to be following him, either in like an annual content or maybe like side quests, or something like that.
I think one of the next steps of his story, right, is in some way, as but I'm going to talk about more later, but to allude to it, hit at it a little bit, whatever, is they need a call for help. They can't do this alone, and allegedly they only have one pelican, really. Like
they don't, but yeah, it looks like they only do.
But yeah, and
I mean, how else do all those Marines teleport to different, base stations?
yeah, a lot of Razorbacks.
A lot of Razorbacks.
They've been doing nothing but cardio on that ring for 6 months. Well.
But the affinity somewhere on the ring still. Like we're on a tiny portion of the ring if you think about it. There could be multiple other UNSC forces scattered throughout the ring, around a tiny broken piece of it. And either the Spirit of Fire, other UNSC fleet, the Arbiter and his, Swords of Shaykhali fleet, someone has to come and they have to radio for help.
Yeah.
So I could see the pilot's story of wanting to go home at some point, right? Kind of mixing in with that.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, from how I see it, I kind of see him stepping into the role of actually, because I know he's got family, but I see him stepping into the role of either A, becoming a Spartan or Marine, or B, taking on kind of the role that we saw with, oh god, what's his face?
Not Johnson.
Not Johnson, but
Lasky.
oh god, I can't remember who it is. But I see him more on a role as like more of a companion to Master Chief that shows him kind of like a couple of like he kind of directs Master Chief more as like a navigator.
Like one of the keys is.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
But how I would like to see it is for him to become like a Marine or a Spartan, like, and kind of have him, because again, he's kind of become like a Gen 4 Spartan, right?
Yeah.
Right, we're on the Gen 4s, or maybe even a Gen 5 Spartan. I don't know.
You could actually, right now, it most likely could do Gen 5 if you really wanted to.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, because they haven't really delved into that I don't even know if there's Gen 5 Spartans.
No,
they haven't talked about it at all.
Yeah, a lot of the Gen 4s died on,
yep, when the satellite exploded, or the station exploded, or whatever, which Cortana destroyed.
Was that Sword Base or Castle Base?
No, Sword and Castle are on Reach. That's some untreated facility.
But yeah,
it was the AI that Cortana had said, like, hey, I can't remember what his name is. It sounded British or something.
I think.
Okay, that's what it was.
And then, but yeah, and also now Halsey's somewhere on Zeta Halo because she was on the Infinity.
Yep.
Yeah. So like there's key characters that we know are not going to be dead and we're going to see again. So there's multiple UNSC forces, and I bet you there's multiple Spartan forces. So
that's partly why I expect the pilot to become like a Spartan or a Marine.
Yep.
Spartan more likely, and kind of joining, maybe replacing a member of Blue Squad, or joining even Blue Squad. That's how I see his story. Not that it's actually going to happen, but that's how I can, with the emphasis that they put on him, that makes sense to me. That's what makes sense to me, because he's like a new character, and they put such a major emphasis on him in the campaign. It makes sense for him to be joining in either by Master Chief's side as a member of Blue Squadron, or a trusted Marine or something, kind of like the level that Arbiter played in 2 or 3, where he's kind of like maybe the co-op. That's kind of how I envision it. But that's why I kind of see him becoming a Spartan, because then it would make sense for him to join in as player 2 for co-op if he becomes a Spartan, or at least in far further down the line. But that's what makes sense to me writing wise. I'm not necessarily I'm not the best writer, I will admit that. But even I can come to certain conclusions about putting emphasis on certain people.
I don't think he's going to become a Spartan necessarily. I think one for a time wise, when we're doing like a live game, he'd have to come up with a reason for why he's gone from the game for essentially a season to undergo all the augmentations as well as the additional training. But something they can do, which is pretty immediate, would be to give him a battlefield commission, which is something the Navy's have done forever. And given like his role he's played on the Rain for the Marines already on there with Chief, would be entirely possible that when the UNC fleet comes up and they're like, hey, you, congratulations, you're a captain now, here's your cutter, here's your corvette. Like, you're not getting the full flagship, but we'll give you something.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking, like maybe a Marine or some high-level military officer. Yeah. That's what he'd become. And I mean, that it makes sense that he'd be pushed somewhere down that role.
Yeah.
Just because of the emphasis, the role that he's played currently.
And there's, I mean, this is spoiler territory, so sorry, Phil. But he did have that line where he's talking with the weapon, and the weapon asks him, like, "Do you have anyone left?" And he says, "No, not anymore."
Yeah, I've seen that scene because that's when he's having
Yes.
his breakdown.
Yeah. So I imagine there might be a point where he's offered the mission, and the weapon's like, "Well, didn't you want to go home?" He's like, "Well, there's nothing for me to actually go back home to." So.
He's like, Ohana means family, and family means no one gets left behind. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I feel like he's kind of I feel like he and Master Chief are going to kind of have like a brotherly connection. I feel like that's, I don't know, maybe something more serious. I don't know. But I feel like that's the idea. No. I mean, just as far as like the story wise and how it makes sense that either he views the chief as a brother or as like more of a father figure. Just because, again, even though Chief doesn't really know what to say, he's still there to save him. Like he saves him from Escharum when Escharum is torturing him, and he's I mean, he goes through this whole entire thing to save him because the Chief is like, I don't know how to feel very well, so I feel like, but I still do feel something like I should be helping.
Yeah. That's the whole thing where, like, even, like, the pilot realized it was like, a poor tactical decision to, like, do a single-handed assault to save one person with minimal combat experience, but then when Chief gets there, he's like, "Hey, shut up and let me save you."
and that's part of the reason why I'm like, well, I mean, there's definitely something. We're going to be hearing more about the pilot. We're going to be learning more about the pilot. If they don't, for whatever reason, I'd be surprised. But
to me, the name, by the way, since we all know it, and we're talking spoilers, or do you want to give it time to pilot?
It's really weird how, like, so I completely forgot his name, but I'm just like, I always like know him actually as either pilot or as Echo, because he's always called Echo by the weapon, or whenever you do something, there's this Echo coming in, or like. So for me, he's always just been Echo.
I can't remember what his name is. I knew what it was.
His name is Fernando.
Fernando, yes.
Fernando. Oh yeah, Esparza.
Yeah.
That's right. I was like, I couldn't. What's his name?
Well, I'm guessing it was with that though, and with the weapon choosing her name that we don't learn yet. I'm guessing in
Cortana.
the next.
Cortana.
Probably.
I mean, it makes sense. It makes sense. She's replacing Cortana as a role. She's from Cortana's code.
Yeah, but I'm guessing what we'll probably end up getting in the next set of content is they'll refer to each other as the names, but for now, it's really weird trying to like remember their names when no one gets called that for
the entire campaign.
Yeah,
pretty much.
I think this is the most that Master Chief has been called John though in a game.
Yeah, which is weird because I still just think of him Chief. Like whenever I automatically sub whenever somebody says his name, it's just Chief. It's like.
We're gonna get some weird officer like in this game is call him Chief John and throw everyone off.
Chief Master, what's going on? What's going on, Chief Master?
Do you have anything else to say about the pilot, or should we move on to the Chief?
I think I've said a lot of what I really wanted to say about him. Again, he's a very strong character, very good arc.
Yeah, he does have the most like visibly apparent arc, and that like the actual like moment of change and resolution is like an actual like emotional breakdown and conversation.
He breaks down. He gets saved by Chief, and
Yeah, but it is pretty cool to have this character who we actually get like for the first time really in the game a perspective of someone who is not. Did not really sign up to fight. He's not supposed to be here. Did not sign up to fight the government. He's signed to like work on electronics.
Yep.
But you know that change.
The only reason he even survived was because of cowardice. So.
Yeah. But makes that decision to like, you know what, I do belong here. I'm going to do what I can. So.
I will ask this before we move on to Chief. Do you guys? There's a lot of complaints about the pilot too emotional, like too much of this, you know.
He's a human being. I feel like
like. Okay. Sorry if I didn't want to quote this.
No, please finish your thought. I feel like I wasn't interrupting.
Like I remember reading a comment of someone, right? I can't remember. It's like Discord or for Reddit or for like I think maybe seen a review of like tired of all this like emo emotional stuff and just want badass one-liners and that's it. And I'm like, this is very touching. This is not
Yeah.
a bad story.
I will say there's a few moments that I personally saw that were kind of like, well, it feels like they kind of put this at a little bit awkward time for the emotion. Like he might be angry at one chief and a little bit bipolar, and then be like happy with chief one. That mainly happens during the game. There's only one actual scene I think that you actually really see that, and that's and I mean that's kind of expected. I don't like. I can understand why people will say that, but the truth is, if you were a human being, all you were supposed to do was just work on electronics. Say you were the tech guy, like what I do. Say you were a tech guy, and you just go. You're supposed to be fixing their computers, and all of a sudden you're pulled in, and you said, "Hey, here's a gun, here's a ship. You got to survive." And you're like, "What the fuck?"
Well, that's the whole thing. What I think is really because I think what makes as someone who's had just said that I love that Halo is a world where it's 50,000 Doom guys, but what that makes that really special is the fact that you have to have that in contrast with the normal people who were like,
they didn't sign up. You didn't sign up for it.
Who are not Doom guy. Like you need to have that contrast, and I mean, if I was. I mean, there's already like a level of bravery in that he ran from his duty station through the like banished boarding parties to the hangar in order to like find a way to escape. But I mean, I feel like a lot of people in that same position would just start crying in the bathroom until they die.
Yeah, he survived, and I mean he endured torture, like insane torture from Escharum, like that,
yeah.
I mean that's like the guy went through hell basically, and he's a normal dude. He's a normal freaking dude. Like he's not specially trained. Like he's not super. Well, I mean he's specially trained.
He's not an ODST. He's not a Marine.
He's not a Marine. He's nothing like that. He's literally just a guy.
Yeah.
And I like what you said about it being like that like contrast. And it's not even just a contrast. It's a guy who's like, I don't. His whole entire world got turned upside down. Master Chief, like, oh, that happens all the time. Oh. Yeah, sure, that happened to me last year. Like, yeah, whatever.
And as far as we know, like his family may have been like in Sydney or in Africa when the Guardians showed up. Yeah.
Yeah, they could have all died from an event like that.
Yeah, they could have died from one of the Covenant invasions. They could have died from the Cortana's attack.
Yeah.
Especially Sydney's wiped out.
Yeah.
Like Cortana wiped out the UNSC HQ, but Red Hood is still alive.
Yeah.
That's been confirmed. Which we have.
Yeah. But I think I don't have like the exact statistic off my head, but they said in the last year, like the amount of life that or the percentage of life that humanity's been reduced by is insane. As far as he's concerned, he's like sitting there working on like a circuit breaker. He gets the news like, oh, by the way, you're on the brink of extinction, and then you're getting boarded.
Guess what? You're probably gonna die.
Yeah.
You're probably gonna die, and everybody you know and love, they're dead.
Oh no! You're forgetting
Hope
also.
You survive.
No, you're forgetting you're also now stranded on an alien arena that is also a super weapon.
Yeah, I mean,
surrounded by aliens that want to
guy's
kill
response. I mean, yeah, it can. There's a couple of moments that I've kind of just been like, okay, I understand he's being whiny, but I appreciate it. Like, I mean, as far as the character goes, he's got a really strong arc. A lot of his dialogue is really well done. The intro scene is phenomenal. I mean, with him, when he's kind of just like he's like, hey, you there? So anyone alive? Here, I'm gonna try something. And I mean, just the fact that his first thought was to try and save. Like he's like, oh, a Spartan, is he even alive? Well, let's try and save somebody.
Yep. Cloud9 takes round 1 oddball.
Nice.
They were the ones they had to be beat too, right?
Yeah. Optic won all the qualifiers in, but Cloud9 has gone undefeated in the bracket so far, so they need to be beat twice in order to be eliminated.
Yeah, being undefeated is kind of hard to.
Yeah.
I mean, it happens, but.
Yeah. But yeah, like not just that, but also within the last 2-3 years, with like the proliferation of information about like once the Forerunners the information on them got leaked. Like everyone else, like by the way, also all like human religious systems that are used for comfort, incorrect.
If these rings get activated, we're all gonna die.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Hey,
Oh, and you can't control whether or not they get activated because somebody could activate one at any time. The whole entire network would go off. Yep.
well, that
So every single day you live could be your last.
I guarantee we also will go back to Ark at some point. The fact that it just has interest in the rings, and the fact that they are fighting on the Ark, the UNSC has to regain control of that, or else doesn't matter what you do on the rings, they will fire.
What we might see, just as far as like the campaign goes in future DLC, is we might see either a is it a slip drive, right?
Subspace
So
drive.
Slip space drive. So we see a vehicle that arrives with the capabilities of a slip space drive. So we may potentially be able to visit other Halos or other worlds like New Mombasa, or return
Or Earth, which is.
or we could see like
Yeah.
prequel, in Earth, or we might see like some prequel information, or something like that to give some background, which is why we'd see some New Mombasa stuff. We'd get like another ODST essentially level DLC, and that I can see something like that happening.
Yeah, that's there's also something like that is strictly expanded universe in the world, but we do know that there are other alien races that have like either like neutral or positive diplomatic relations with humanity at this point.
Yeah.
Like even like the Grunt homeworld is had a human embassy on it for a while, but I imagine at some point what we end up getting would be another alien race that comes and we're like, actually, we don't like the banished or this whole like apocalypse situation either. So hey, humans, we're gonna help you out a little bit here.
Honestly, it
This
most
looks like
likely
you're
will be Arbiter.
Yeah.
And a short
Yep.
particular
Well,
universe.
the Arbiter, he's retired, right? Or he's retired. He's on
He-
another world right now,
Well,
right?
he was on his own planet dealing with the Civil War for a while, but
Yeah.
that should have ended by Halo 5, and when that happened, they were going to team up for the Created.
Mhm.
So, and I also am reading on a wiki right now, I didn't notice this when I pulled up to date, and I'm not sure how confirmed this is, right? But it's a line from Atriots that Cortana's empire fell apart.
When
Which
the weapon destroyed. when the-
Cortana, or Cortana is gone,
Mhm.
but I want you about to create an empire. If that's gone, then
Yeah,
you
I think-
see Kurt come and help them eventually.
Yeah. I think what had happened was the superintendent, because he is the uncrackable AI, and that he's like, I probably said like, but like his encode, well, his code is essentially made with the equivalent of unobtainium, where it's like triple rotating 5 like
His encryption,
octadecimal.
his encryption level is so significant, even Cortana couldn't crack him. And it's written in a completely different language, a completely self-sufficient, uniquely built language that doesn't exist anywhere. So it's like, even if she did crack him, she wouldn't know what to do with him.
Yeah, I think someone that like someone like one of his like programmers like in one of the like, old like KO3 campaigns, they had done some lore stuff for him.
Oh, yes.
But I think
Or wait,
yeah,
wait.
yeah, but I think,
Who are you talking about? Superintendent from New Mombasa, or are you talking about a Forerunner AI?
I'm talking about New Mombasa superintendent because he's also built into the Earth Defense Network.
Right.
So I think one of his creators had described him as a benevolent god, essentially. So
That's it was a lady scientist, right, who was the one who created him.
yeah, and he's the one who set up all the essentially all the weird thing, all the electronics in New Mombasa to guide the OTST teams through, and also apparently he did some stuff to make sure that Chief got off planet. They hinted at that. So I'm thinking that they might hit at he had done something to when Cortana tried to reach out to him, but he did not sign up. That he had done something to liberate other AIs or do something to make sure that other ships were intact.
I want us to see Superintendent on Infinite. I want us to see Superintendent.
Mhm.
We already see him on Infinite in multiplayer, but
him
yes.
even more at the campaign with him in it.
Mm-hmm.
But oh, I agree with both of you what you're saying about the pilot. I'm not really if I have much to add. You know, he was the human connection to the story. one of my favorite scenes are with him and Chief, and he's just lying down, where honestly he's, so distraught that the condors are completely ripped apart and gutted, and he cannot make the Pelicans space capable and go home. And Chief is just looking at them, listening. Not really speaking, but listening.
Again, Chief doesn't say much,
No.
because he doesn't say much, and he may not know how to respond in the best way, and that's what the weapon is there for. That's
Yep.
I mean, I'll talk more about this when we actually go through it, but the weapon is kind of Master Chief's the way that Master Chief can kind of show emotion, even though he doesn't really. I mean, he's not. That's not what he was trained to do. That's not what he's lived how to do.
And let's go to Chief. I want to talk about where do you think he is when a campaign starts? How I feel about Cortana, how he feels about the Spartans too, because he rescues Griffin, and this was not really shown in the campaign, so I think this will also be part of an expansion, right? Where he's just like, find the Spartans.
Mm-hmm.
Alluding to like, they're not all dead.
Mm-hmm.
There's multiple ones out there. They just need to be found. They're stranded. They're captured. They're lost.
Yeah.
Find them. And we never really saw that in the story.
Yeah.
So,
minus the one time when he goes to save the Spartan because he sees the armor but the guy's already dead.
Yeah.
But that's
well,
Griffin.
he's not dead, but he dies. Yeah,
that's Griffin. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, there's so much. Like, as a big lore guy, right? There's so many little things that connects to Chief's past that's not in the games, right? In this, that flows so well, I think.
Yeah.
From see the holograms of Cheese as a boy.
Yeah.
And the way that it is, and it's really hit me. To even when he is deleting the weapon, right?
Yeah.
And the code phrase, right? First is, a red flag, which was a operation that they were going to do right before Reach happened to kill a coveted prophet, which Chief did later. Just he kind of did Operation Red Flag again, just not how it was planned. And he code phrase for the deletion was Samuel 034, which was his best friend from the Spartan program, as well as the first casualty during the war.
Yeah.
Of the Spartans.
I think
just those tiny details. I loved seeing that. It made him feel more human.
Yeah.
To people that know him, and a whole
I think
made him feel human. And sorry, Tim, I interrupted you. Trying to go ahead.
I feel like I kind of mentioned this. But this was last week for multiplayer. Like when they went to designing the Halo multiplayer, like they looked at the community. Like a lot of our community is actually super into competitive play. So like let's model our quick play after like what competitive play looks like and what the rank gave it like a rank progression system and all that. But I think what they did is they also listened to the community when they went to like the campaign model, where it's like, oh, a lot of our community was not feeling what we're doing, like with these weird like self-contained things in 4 and 5 or time into like the movies necessarily, but they've read a lot of the books and the comics, and like they're really into that lore. So it's and the same thing that happened with like Destiny, where I was like, oh, a lot of people are actually like reading the like lore tabs and lore pages. So it's like build the screen to look in like reflect that essentially. So a lot of what you see on the screen reflects like stuff that you might have already read in the books, because they're looking at like what the community really liked about the Halo universe and tried to build into that.
And which shows in Infinite. It really does show. And I mean, again, I think that Master Chief, as far as like, he's just as far as like how he behaves, is a lot. He doesn't know how to. I mean, again, I've mentioned it before. He doesn't know how to be emotional.
No.
I'm not saying that he isn't emotional or doesn't have any way to feel it, but he was trained to show no emotion. Basically, everybody he knows has a chance of dying at any point in time. So he's always been fairly detached. But I think that Infinite shows the most connection that he's ever had to being, because again it showed his childhood.
Mhm.
It had moments from his little clips from his childhood.
Yeah.
He's doesn't know how to grieve.
Yeah.
So this entire thing, he's trying to figure out how to grieve, and that's he feels bad for losing Cortana. He feels like it was his responsibility to have saved her.
But not
Because again,
not just Cortana, all of humanity.
Yeah.
oh yeah,
Because that's the line you get where he's like, where the weapon rises, he's like, I could have stopped this.
Yeah.
He's like,
well, he's like, I could have stopped this. I should have convinced her. But
yeah,
he feels responsible for that, and
Yeah.
even though he doesn't know how to show emotion, or
Mhm.
even though he doesn't necessarily know the best way to show emotion or how to grieve or any of that, that's what he's doing through the entirety of the campaign.
Yeah,
And that's what the
once-
nice thing about seeing the pilot and showing the sharp contrast with how they're actually handling their grief and how they're able to move
Mhm.
forward. And then the pilot, the weapon chief rescuing the weapon, and then when he tries he tries to do what he thinks is right, and then when he tries to delete her, then that doesn't happen. He's just like, well, now I
I'm
feel like
stuck.
I feel like I've made even more of a mistake, and now he doesn't know what to do because he's
He can't trust.
That's like what I said. Where like the pilot has that change of accepting his responsibility. That like he's there now, and he has he's there's something he can do to help. He's not totally helpless. Chief also has a very clear moment where like he acknowledges that change, where the weapon says, "Are you okay?" And he says, "Not really, no." Where that moment where he realizes that if he wants people to work together and like he wants the team to work, he needs to be open.
Yeah.
And he finally opens up about how this is all making him feeling. And
sorry.
yeah, we do have a moment of like clear change where the chief acknowledges that like, okay, he's been acting a little weird. He needs to change the way he's acting if he wants everything to work out. And he does so, and he's honest with the weapon and with the pilot, saying like, I'm not okay with how Cortana turned out. I'm not okay being where she died.
And he doesn't want the same thing to happen to the weapon or to Esperanza, like
Esparza, yeah.
Esparza, yeah.
Ah.
He doesn't want that to happen to Esparza as well, because he's starting to make connections. Like that's the thing. He's starting to regain his humanity, I guess, is another way of looking at it.
It's not uncommon for Spartans to be like this too,
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's definitely certain ones that are more friendly and more emotional and more open and more joyful. Kelly 80. No, go ahead, Tim. Phil.
I was just gonna say those have mostly been Generation 3 and 4 Spartans.
Yeah, but I'm thinking
Master Chief is a Generation 2.
Well, Kelly, who was on his team, was very talkative since we kept, and so was Kurt.
Well, I wasn't going to mention Kurt. Like Kurt.
Yeah.
I'm talking strictly twos here because the 3s and 4s are much more, open. But strictly the twos, right? Even the talkative ones like Kelly or George, you have your talkative ones, and then you have your very quiet, silent types like Linda, like Jerome, like Emil, even though actually he's a 3, so. But even the 3s follow some of it. But the 2s and 3s, most, even the happy ones, right? Like George is a good example, right? There's still this stoicness, still this seriousness, still this bit darkness to him. It's so rare for any of the 2s, especially the 2s, to really allow themselves to feel purely human. Like, I was watching, as I said, I watched Halo Legends, as I said before the show, I think. I watched Halo Legends earlier, and I'm gonna adult dips to some nice little lore stuff, like you said, Tim. They looked at what the community liked, they loved the lore, and let's add some little things, and I saw it all over the campaign.
Yeah.
But,
also Easter eggs, phenomenal.
Oh yeah, so great. But like, there was one of the short stories with it, right? Homecoming followed 2 Spartans, followed Daisy 23, which you actually see some of her like girl teddy bear charm in a multiplayer shop. Who was also like more happy, but still this stoicness, still this darkness, still like clearly went through some trauma. And then you also have Ralph 103, which he accepted the augmentations. Everything went well, right? But he washed out of the program. And I think it partly because he just was too emotional.
Yeah, I think
Like, it affected him too much.
I think uh, yeah, one of my favorites was Fred, who
Yeah.
was very like empathetic and talkative, but he's like I'm. Or like, he had that semblance of like feeling emotions, or like I'm just trying to solve a problem. He's like understand that there's a conflict. I'm just trying to resolve it. Like everything is just a problem to be fixed. But he knew how to talk at least and like express things. But he's very much just like you are a nail and I'm a hammer.
And a lot of the Spartans are lost even that ability, you know, like one of my favorites is Rule 43. And I know there's a quote with John Cena, you know, when they were kids and they were growing up together, right? And they were all training. He was so talkative and so joyful. And not that he doesn't talk anymore. He still talked. He still was, you know, had a humor to him. But he said, like, as the years went on, there's a certain magic that left. I think the only Spartan of all of them, and a lot lost out, but a lot survived. The only one that really kept it full of humanity was Kurt.
Yeah.
I think Kurt's the only one.
And again, that's why I kind of have been talking about this a lot. But I feel like this is kind of Master Chief's starting to be return to being like he's starting to return to kind of feel human. Like he's showing his humanity as you kind of mentioned. But it's kind of a story about having Master Chief learn how to become human again. Like he is basically a god amongst men. I mean, he's one of the oldest living Spartans, if not the oldest living Spartan.
There's only a few Spartan 2s left. Black Team's dead, Kurt's dead. Well, most others, the only ones that are left, I think, are Blue Team with Fred, Linda, Kelly, and John. Gray Team, Naomi, Maria, who's retired. Red Team with Alice, Douglas, and Jerome, and then Omega Team with Leon, Robert, and August. And I think that's it.
Yeah, there's
That's
not
a
much
lot.
left.
Like those.
I mean, there were hundreds of Spartans.
I think
now
there
there's,
was
like,
less than 100, or less than hundreds originally.
less than hundreds.
I think it'd be
Well,
like
maybe Spartan 2s.
150.
I'm thinking.
Oh,
Yeah.
in total, yeah, there was hundreds of Spartans. Spartan 3s. You know, they sent 300 died in their first mission with the Spartan 3s. And, you know, between the 2s and the 3s, there were hundreds upon hundreds. And, you know, the fact that I just named less than what? 10? Maybe 10? And with the 3s, I think Alice, Ash, Olive, Dante, Lucy, and Tom are only 3s left.
Yeah, Chief has
All right.
outlived most Gen 3s, which is insane.
So out of hundreds of Spartans, I think there's like one more. So out of hundreds upon hundreds, there's less than 20 left.
What's also really weird is to think that Johnson was a Spartan 1 who outlived most 2s.
Yep, that's true too.
Yeah. Cloud9 takes Slayer on raid charge.
Nice.
They're now up 2-0 in the series.
Cloud9 is undefeated, so.
But I also will say I loved the opening of the game. I know there were complaints about that it was too slow and it was too not letting us get to the main campaign. But
Oh no, they have a prologue to the actual like what you do through the rest of the game. Oh no, it's almost like that's what most games do.
Yeah, especially open world games. Like
stupid.
Like the first 10 hours of Witcher 3 is literally like contained to one area.
Yeah. I mean, people who say that it's too slow, I don't know. I'm not going to say their claims aren't valid because you know each game is differently paced. I mean, people like different types of paced games.
Of course.
Yeah.
But just as far as like
art is subjective.
Again, as far as like actual feeling. I mean, it's not like. I don't feel that the game is too slow personally. I feel like what it might be is it's just that people are expecting to be the full open world experience, everything immediately.
But
I mean,
they
the game is
said multiple times it's not open. I don't think of it as an open world game.
yeah, it's not truly it's not a fully open
Yeah.
world game.
They repeatedly
feels-
said that.
It is a non-open world game that feels like an open world game, and a lot of
Yes.
people
Yeah.
expect an open world game to have certain expectations with that. And this isn't an open world game. It has a relatively open world, and it
Yeah.
feels a lot more open world, but it is not truly an open world game.
What
And
is it-
I think that's why there's a lot of people who complain about it feeling too slow,
Yeah.
because they're like, oh well, we should expect this fully open world experience right here, right now, when it's not even an open world experience
No.
technically. So
What it is, and like they keep drawing this comparison, but similar to Destiny, what you have is that you have a traditional Halo game, but now it has an overworld. So there's something to do between the missions.
Yep.
It's not just corridor to corridor.
Also, what they love doing in missions, right, is I repeatedly, especially did this for Spartan Griffin's mission, right, to rescue him from Charlotte, right? I did like loaded a Razorback up with like 5 Marines, went to that front gate, unloaded them, and charged, and then freed a ton of prisoners. And I like the whole little Marine army. I think at least 4 or 5 died, but the others are alive, and we
I
just
think
took
the
everyone out.
most
That was
Marines
so
that
much
I've
fun.
had, I think the most Marines that I've had is there's I can't remember if it's it's one of the missions where there's like a big area and there's like you can rescue like up to 12 Marines or whatever.
Yeah.
You filled the Razorback, brought it over, and then for some reason the rest of the people who were at the FOB like right nearby, they followed.
Oh my
I don't
god.
know why, but they followed. So there was like 20 Marines or
Oh,
something.
I was there.
And I was like, oh well, okay, sure. Yeah, the more the merrier. Most of them died, but you know, it was still crazy to see that there was like 20 Marines swarming an area.
They must have actually took out a bunch of like bandits for that. Like 20
Yeah.
Marines are not nothing to joke about. They actually can't kill things, so
They can. The ones that are unarmored dies a little bit faster.
of course that makes sense.
But the ones that the prisoners died. I think almost all the prisoners died, sadly. But it was still so crazy to see there was like 20 Marines just swarming the area.
If we get 4-player co-op, that is something I want to do. I want us all having Razorbacks and just like grab as many Marines as we can, and
That's when
then,
you go to different FOB.
exactly, and then just assault the base and take it over.
That's
We gotta have 2 people go to or 3 people go to different FOBs, so you have like a truck of Marines. One person coming in a Hornet as air support.
Yep. Oh, imagine if we actually had a like usable Republican at some point. Just do that. That'd be great. But
works right now.
Well,
but
I'm thinking-
maybe
the-
campaign.
Yeah, so I'm thinking what they're gonna do for the next chunk is they're just gonna add in another. I don't know if we're gonna do it for everything, but they're gonna add in like they're gonna add in like a next chunk of islands or whatever for Zeta Halo. And I'm curious because we saw at the end of the campaign that he was in a desert biome.
yeah.
Like canonically, it gets taken back because then there is. I think it's also interesting is essentially the post game is canonical in a weird way in that it's like you have a Pelican take you back to wherever and do stuff, but I almost wonder if the next one they're going to be at is going to be a desert biome and they might find a very convenient elephant or something there.
That'd be funny. That'd be great.
Yeah.
But
Or there might be some infinite support that have made their way and they just happen to be.
well, we still attend, someone were doing, running the files, they found a DOS Warthog. They could tell that the brand new model for that turret, pretty tested. Like you said last time, Tim, it's something that won't come. It just gonna come.
Mhm.
It'll run. We'll get there when we get there.
Same thing with the Cougar, same thing. I bet you the Falcon or the Hornet will come, or maybe even both, At least one of those sounds like it made sense. The cost that's most likely will be one of the next ones because I imagine one of the easiest bloody things to do compared to a whole new, vehicle. But the other ones, a lot focus on co-op, and that makes sense for the co-op update. And also even what you said about a desert biome, Tim, right? Like the fact that the baddest skiff actually kind of looks like something you would use on a desert. And,
Yeah.
you know, like, I don't know what about you guys, but from whenever you're at Skiff, I often see them like the desert or snowy biome,
Mm-hmm.
you know? Um, and it even kind of harkens back to one of the first times we saw a Prowler in Halo 3 was on Ark. When
Yeah.
most of that was that desert. So, and after it basically their Prowlers, so, you know, who knows? Maybe a lot of stuff in the co-op update.
Yeah.
Cool. Or next area expansion, whenever that comes. But anyone have anything else to say about Chief?
I love the fact that his voice actor is like 70 and still doing his voice.
Yeah. So here's the question, right? What happens when the actor, when he ages out? When he can't do the Chief anymore?
I don't know. I don't. They might recast him, but honestly, I feel like they're just about there that they could age him out because I mean, Chief is kind of a dinosaur.
He is.
Yeah. So it might get to a point where either he
Esperanza takes over. There we go.
yeah, either he'll die fighting or he'll come to a point where like Lord Hood comes like, "Say, Chief, you're literally 99. You need to go to retirement home."
Oh, do you think the idea of Jerome taking over is practical?
I think it's possible. I mean, he's the most chief, not chief Spartan 2. But also he does have a different personality, which would make it a unique experience to actually like get his perspective on similar situations.
He also does have his own AI companion in Isabella,
Mhm.
and he was one of the four potential leaders for the Spartans,
Yeah,
along with Chief, Fred, and Kurt.
and Red Team is still hanging around no matter how many times you threw them to suicide missions in campaign.
Yep, pretty much.
You guys were supposed to die. Well,
It's okay. It's not GS.
you die. And we respawn. I can just imagine that, like, playing through, like,
Given how many Easter eggs that like 343 put into Infinite, there'd for sure be something where they'd mention like resource counts, be like, Red Team dies every so often, but don't worry, get so many resources and they'll come back.
wait, so
Just like a plaque that's like all the missions where Red Team could have died.
we should have died here. Should have died here. Should have died here.
And it's just like a list of like the resource costs, just like the multiplied each time.
It's asking them the question, but did you die? Well, yes, but I got better.
Oh God. Alright, let's go to the weapon.
Yeah.
Her naivete is fantastic. Her dialogue with Chief was some
Oh,
of my
yeah.
favorite to the whole story.
Yeah, I mean, I think that she had a really interesting arc. I feel like she's basically started out as like, oh, I was supposed to have died. Like, I'm not supposed to be here.
But Halo continues the tradition of making me attracted to a computer.
God.
It's the same voice actress too the entire time.
Yes. I did not realize that. Like, her performance is so good, I didn't realize it was her.
I know.
Like, she changed her voice placement, her dialect, like, it is so good.
It is really, really well done.
The voice acting for so many characters was so well done, to point out. In general.
Cloud9 wins round 3 Strongholds on Livefire.
Nice.
They need one more to sweep, and then they'll be the winners of the HCS season kickoff.
Nice.
Well, Cloud9, I have a feeling may have won. You know,
Yeah.
let's see if there's an underdog who happens to.
Let's see. United needs to do a reverse sweep and win the next 4 matches in order to force a bracket reset.
Next time at the Halo tournament, we should do another Halo episode on just something. And
I'll figure out a way to get my green screen up and just have that going on in the background.
well, that, but also have your whole table
Yeah,
set
the
up.
commentator, the
Like your
commentator
commentator.
setup.
My commentary
Yes.
table, yeah.
Yes, we need that.
Wonder,
I really want to do that. No, that's a tournament.
give me 1 second.
But what are you doing?
I just need to open up OBS in 1 second here, and then I can get a virtual camera going.
If you're wanting to do it, I'd like to have a moment break. If that's alright, guys.
Yeah, let's finish up talk about the weapon.
Agreed.
Just 'cause I think that she's kind of the last character who we really want to talk about.
And then we go to Esrim and Cortana when we get back, and then we go into
I feel like we've talked about
gameplay.
yeah.
Yep.
We're talking about the heroes right now. It feels good to finish
Wrap
talking
it
about
up.
the heroes.
Agreed. No, agreed.
So just as far as you had kind of mentioned her naivety, yeah, she basically in her eyes she had one purpose and one purpose only: to trap Cortana and to delete herself.
Yes.
Like that was supposed to be it. So now she has to. She's kind of like, well, I don't know what I'm supposed to do, but you know what? Sure, let's try it. And then she starts to realize, like, could I become this monster that Cortana became? And then she's like, who do I trust? Who do I trust? Do I trust Chief, who eventually says, like, he eventually tries to delete her. So it's like,
maybe not the best person to trust there.
maybe not the best person to trust, but I think that a good person for her to have trust is the pilot.
Yeah.
Esperanza. Like, I think that she kind of has some really fun dialogue with him. Their interactions are always great. I've liked every single one of them that they've had. But basically, it's kind of she essentially is somebody who shouldn't exist and has to come to terms with the own horrors of their own existence. Essentially, she was created to trap Cortana from Cortana. She was created from Cortana to trap Cortana, basically. And she's in a world where the person who she's modeled after, the very individual who she is modeled after, completely ruined the entire universe. Essentially, almost completely deleted. Almost completely wiped humanity entirely out.
Yep.
And she's like, well, I mean, she doesn't know what to do. I mean, that's the only reason why I'm kind of hesitant to why she'd take the name on Cortana.
Yeah, I'm not sure much. That might be one of my biggest, not complaints, but kind of uncertainties about how I feel about the story. Because, besides the fact of why, like you said, you go weird taking on that name after hearing everything they've done, it also just, you would want to be your own person, right?
Again, it feels kind of weird. If that's the way they go, that's the way they go. But to me, how I've been looking at it, as far as like a sense of, she is a person who originally had no troubles, and now all of a sudden her life is full of them because she didn't delete herself, like, because she stayed around. And her naivety plays a really strong part into her coming to these realizations as she's starting to find her. She has to try and find herself, and that's what the naivety plays into, is her trying to realize, like, who am I as an AI? I guess, I mean, that's kind of what I guess I appreciate the screen, Tim.
Me too.
I couldn't get my OBS background to work, so I opted for my tabletop casting background.
Fair.
Excellent.
Like it.
But yeah, again, she's having to come to terms with who she is and why she is, and that's kind of a really interesting story arc that I really liked, is just the fact that she's realizing that the person that she was made in the image of was essentially a monster. I mean, and not necessarily that Cortana herself was a monster. She was corrupted by the flood, the flood virus or whatever.
Well, she was corrupted, and she was, even by Halo 3, she was already kind of rampant a bit. She was losing herself.
She was rampant, and then that they had, and then in Halo 3, she'd interfaced with the hive mind,
Yep.
Yeah.
which we end up learning later. First in Legends, and then also Halsey mentions it that the Flood have a thing called the Logic Virus, which is how they managed to kill the Forerunners.
And
But since-
corrupt mental bias.
yeah,
The AI.
yeah, they're able to essentially create the zombies inside computers.
Well, again, the Flood aren't
Yeah.
the Flood aren't like mindless beings. They're
Yes.
hive mind essentially.
Yeah.
They're controlled by a hive mind, and that's kind of what. Yeah, it is very much like the
Yeah.
Flood in computers.
And they
Yeah.
take on any intellect or knowledge that they assimilate.
Mhm.
That
Yeah.
species how they assimilate. So
Which is why it was really bad when they killed Captain Keyes.
yep.
Yep. Oh no.
Yeah.
I've also heard that is some ideas of why Harbinger species was locked away.
hmm
Was the idea that they survived the helo array firing for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And if the idea the foreigners might have had is if the Flood managed to corrupt them, what could they become then?
Yeah.
So they locked them all away.
But then like you're we'll get to that when we get to that. But like you were saying, Rio, yeah, this one does a really good job of making you like because the Halo story so far has always been like, yeah, it's a really scary weapon, but the Foreigners had a reason. Like this would literally save like they created a backup because they didn't want the galaxy to end. They wanted to have everyone have a fighting chance, so they played role of God, cataloged all the species, put them on the Ark, and then created a great flood to then bring them back.
And, even like
They
Legend.
didn't create the Flood. They wiped
Yeah.
out the Flood.
Yes, it's they very much like they're like this is where we get the idea of Noah and the Ark. The Noah was a forerunner that cataloged everyone's like, all right, everyone get on the boat. We're
Well,
killing
funny-
everything else.
Funny enough, you also have a bit of actual the idea of the foreigners actually causing a flood too, though,
Yeah.
because
so-
of the relationship with precursors.
Mhm.
And the precursors kind of not coming back correctly and turned into the
Yeah.
flood, and then a flood going after the humans and the foreigners. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then we get this, the story where the Harbinger says like, well, they put us on trial, and then like because we didn't die and we weren't allowed to defend ourselves, so we were all imprisoned without being told why or for any reason. We're just our entire race is captured and imprisoned. So because they're like, oh, the foreigners did some other really questionable stuff that maybe like they can't necessarily redeem.
No, like the foreigners.
I-
Oh, go ahead, Phil.
I was just gonna say the Forerunners were definitely not the model citizens of
Yeah.
No,
what you
They were
what
not.
you should have a
Mhm.
society built around.
Yeah.
It's some very messed up ideas.
Yeah.
they like again. It's I'm gonna go back to Halo Legends because even more stuff hit to the like that connects from Halo 3 and this.
Mhm.
Is first said off topic is I forgot that Legends really show that Cortana was becoming rampant.
Yeah.
Like you see it
Mhm.
very clearly and much worse than Halo 3. So that is a nice link, but they said even in Origins, into short in Origins and Legends, that the foreigners tried hundreds of different backup ideas and none worked. The
Mhm.
Rings were the absolute last resort.
Yeah.
But if some other species was able to survive, well,
Who knows what else survived the original, the Great
Yeah.
Cleansing,
there's
essentially.
that. Yeah. Also, the helixes, the moment I saw it, I noticed they were. I really thought they were exactly the same thing that were used to plant new life that cataloged DNA, right? Which they don't look exactly the same, so it could not be the case. But it also could just be different, form of different artistic,
Mhm.
that was made in anime form over a decade ago, and
Yeah.
so the other those helixes are just actual prisons with
Yeah.
multiple different species in it, or some are just holding DNA samples that, to actually see life on other worlds.
Yeah.
Either or,
Let's see.
yeah.
Yeah. Let's say that was interesting. They made a choice of the showing you both the ones that like hailed the human and St. Healy samples, where those ones were like narrower. They had the blue outline, and they
They look more humanoid.
yeah. And if you open up those ones, there's nothing inside of it. Essentially, it's literally just a codex.
Yep.
So like they just like plug that into a machine and print out a human. Whereas like the one that they pulled the Harbinger out of, they showed it opened up and it actually had what looked like an energy field that would like be holding her. So I almost wonder if like the endless Cyrexes are like carbonite freezing like Han Solo style.
I was gonna say, let's talk about the endless at the end of this, or before the, because the endless there's so much to talk about for that.
Oh yeah.
I don't remember where exactly, but they talk about the endless even back in Halo 3, I think.
And actually, you know what? I want to change things up a bit.
Let me.
I say, I didn't want to have a 50-second break to turn something. Then I say let's go to Cortana actually, then Etritum, and then the Harbinger and Atlas. And then we go to gameplay and what you want for the campaign, and then just a little bit of random talks, okay? So, back in one tiny moment. Tim, does keep on giving us the rundown while I'm done.
Okay. So it is map 4 in the best of 7. It is capture a flag on Aquarius. United is actually up 2 captures to 1 capture from Cloud9. It is minute 20 left in the round. Let's see there. United is actually slaying out much better than Cloud9 is. Cloud9's playing on the back foot, and that's 2 down now. So Cloud9 is unable to get a cap off. They haven't been able to get enough secured going into United space. United just pushed in with 2. It looks like they traded 1 for 2, but they pulled back to fight for middle, trying to create a lane. Ooh, looks like it's just a lot of trades going back and forth. No one really able to establish a lane for a safe flag carry. I got about 30 seconds left. United is still outslaying Cloud9. So this may be the first map in the series that goes to United, unless Cloud9 can pull a capture in 20 seconds here.
I'm back. Where's Phil?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
See, they've got 15 seconds left. United slaying out. They just wiped half of Cloud9. They just took out 3. That's all down for Cloud9. They're back at spawn now. Second one up for Cloud9, and they can't make it back. So that is the first map in the series to go to United. It is now 3 maps to 1. United needs to win the next 3 in order to do a reverse sweep on bracket 1, force a bracket reset, and they'll play it back again. If Cloud9 win 1 map in the next 3, then they eliminate United.
Slightly off topic, but some news of the Yellow Show, by the way. It's following a separate timeline.
Yes, they said they created a silver timeline for it, so it's they have the gold timeline, which is all the main canonically, and they said this is going to be the first part of what is considered the silver timeline.
And that's how I feel about that.
It'll be interesting. Because split timelines is kind of weird, but that's what I didn't like about with Disney splitting off Star Wars. Like, I don't want them to essentially retcon a whole bunch of like old Halo lore, but
okay.
I feel like I feel like that was probably an executive decision. Someone at Paramount probably said they wouldn't be able to they wouldn't be able to sell a TV show unless they followed Master Chief, since he's the Americanized name. So that's probably but they didn't want to.
But there's so much of the Human Covenant War
Yeah.
That you can do a story with Chief that doesn't interrupt canon.
Yeah, and I feel like they said like we need to do a historical event with Chief because that's the only way we'll get to sell. So they pretty much told the writers at 343 to create a new timeline for it. I feel like that's strictly an executive decision which tends to happen with Hollywood stuff.
I'm not sure how I feel about this, but that'll be a whole other conversation later.
Yeah.
Anyway, what's about Phil? You're quiet. We can't hear you.
There we go.
There you go. Now you're back. There. So I want to go to Cortana next, actually. Cortana. So she's in a weird place with where we left off at 5, with her going kind of cuckoo and making divorce princes come up, and the created and a forerunner Prometheans coming under her, and basically leading a giant AI revolution and wiping out the Spart. You see that she wiped out the Sparta Training Center, demolished the UNSC HQ in Sydney. Who knows how many warships have been destroyed by AI self-destructing their own vessels, or stations, or basically Cortana became on a mass murdering rampage.
Mm-hmm.
And her idea to keep Chief was to lock him away in stages for over X amount of thousands of years until things were peaceful, which was insane. And they've completely butchered Cortana, so...
5, real bad.
Yeah,
Okay?
really, really, really bad. So, do you think the only option they had was to kill her off?
Just as far as, like, compare, like, with the behavior she had from 5, probably. I mean, there's either that or they could do a factory reset, so to speak. Which is kind of what the weapon is, and I'm gonna be honest. The weapon is a lot like just a factory fresh version of Cortana. One without the knowledge or the logic
history.
virus,
Without the history.
And one who basically is again fresh off the boat, and that's what the weapon feels like. The weapon feels like a fresh version of Cortana, and that's kind of what we're supposed to feel. Just because again she's using components from Cortana, or she's using
Halsey too.
From Cortana. Halsey, yeah, she's designed to look pretty much identical to Cortana.
Well, she's from Halsey. Both of them are Halsey's brain patterns. So
yeah. So they're basically Halsey, and again, that's why as far as like Cortana and the weapon goes, they're nearly identical. That's kind of why there's a lot of people saying like, oh, she's gonna take the name on Cortana. Again, thoughts about that we've already discussed. But I mean, just in general, Cortana, I feel like if they had done her story a little bit differently, I think it would have made sense for them to be able to not have killed her. But because of how they did her story in 5, there wasn't really any option. There's not really an option other than to have killed her.
Agreed.
Again, either that or factory reset her, which is again what the weapon basically. Yeah. Which they did. They did both of those things essentially.
I also like that with Cortana's opponent of the story. We also talked, we finally kind of addressed a very ethical issue of the fact that Halsey is,
is the one responsible for killing off of all of humanity, or almost.
There's that, but also Halsey is responsible for the Spartans, right? And a lot of the language I read with George, I referred to her as Mom. And then an extra ethical issue of Halsey is the specific person that recruited John. He thinks of her like a mother too. And that she gives him an AI based on her exact brain patterns. To stay protected with her life. You two are a team. And I like how Jacob Keys...
Cortana is the one who chose him, essentially. Just like Halsey had chosen John. I mean, sorry, this might be a little bit more semantics thing, and I apologize about interrupting.
Go ahead. I misspoke.
I think... But
But
yes,
still,
in a sense, Halsey was the one who chose John and Cortana to be together because Cortana was based on his brain fountain. So yes, you are right.
And-
You're right. But just as a matter of semantics,
and Jacob Keyes did point out, like, you realize this is a big ethical issue. And he is right about that.
one thing I will say that I think is a good reason why they killed off Cortana was because we have the way that they handled it in Infinite, where he has to come to terms with grief. If for whatever reason she wasn't died or she hadn't died, it would have completely removed all of the power that her death held in the story, which would have basically rendered it a very, very weak story in general.
Great.
It's the same reason why we see a lot of problems like in TV shows where, oh, this character died. Huh, no they didn't. And it's like it's a big thing about them having died, but all of a sudden they're not dead. Oh, well, now there's no weight to the consequences of their actions. There's not so all in general, it is a very positive thing. I mean, I would say as far as for the story sake of Infinite, with how they have it written now, not that they couldn't have written it differently if they had changed things differently, but for the way that the story was handled in Infinite, her death is very, very positive thing. It definitely shows that Chief isn't infallible. He isn't infallible. He did make a mistake, and also there's ethics. I mean, it shows there's a lot of really cool lore stuff and reasons why that it's a good thing. But just as far as like, should they have changed it or should she not have died? I'm gonna say that no. I think that because of how Five handled things, it's okay that she died.
Yeah.
A good story like Infinite's. Infinite's good story.
Agreed.
And I'll tie this into also like my thoughts on the weapons since I was messing with my background when we were having that discussion. But
Right, go ahead.
the weapons whole like realization and like her moment of change when she understands that the truth is dirty and that nothing's really as clean as it seems. Even though she's supposed to die, she can't. Even though she understands that she was created from Halsey, she was actually included with a mimic of Cortana, and that humanity, that this thing that she understands she's supposed to protect, her previous life tried to kill. Her coming to that realization and that being tied into Cortana dying, as well as Cortana having her own moment of, we see in flashbacks where she has a realization where Cortana talks with Atriox, and Atriox says, if he knew how he's going to die, he wouldn't change anything. And that causes Cortana to kind of, double down and kill herself in her attempt to wipe out Atriox.
That was a really good scene. I just want to say.
Yes, that was really good. Yeah. Whereas, tie that into the weapon learning that maybe sometimes you need to change everything. That you don't die, you complete the mission. This whole... They do a really good job of mirroring each other and having... Cloud9 just beats United on Slayer Bazaar, so Cloud9 wins the first tournament in the series.
Wow.
Oh my goodness.
Nice.
All right.
Congratulations, Cloud9.
Congratulations.
Yeah. So I feel like they did a really good job of matching the two different stories they wanted to tell, and that did a lot of justice to Cortana dying in the way she did, as well as it ties into the story of the brand where it is now, where they said that Infinite is a soft reboot, and they do a lot of things of mirroring the start of Combat Evolved, as well as saying this is nothing like Combat Evolved. So having the game start where like from the get-go, they're like, Cortana's not in this in the way that you expect. Cortana's dead. And she's dead before the game started. So I felt like that was a really good way of allowing them to do those references you do in something like a reboot but having it be completely new territory.
Yep. Did you guys like the echoes we had of Cortana throughout it? Very reminiscent of Felix.
Yeah, the echoes were...
Those are good. Those are great. Yeah.
How they explain them too, I will say, they explain them very well. They explain them, having them just be data, like remaining residual data, essentially ghosts, as they say. They're basically ghosts. That's why we see fragments of like John's childhood, for instance, with Cortana observing him through Halsey, either through Halsey or that's the one part I wasn't really clear about. I think Cortana was developed after John had already gone through most of the Spartanship program, so I think they are technically memories of Halsey.
Mm-hmm.
But
It's
that is something that I cannot. That's outside of my knowledge for
I think you're right, but I did check.
But I believe that those are Halsey's memories, which is why we see them, and probably why they're some of the last things that are remaining, because they're the core components of who Cortana was.
Yeah, you're right. And I think that you have to think about this, because AIs have a 7-year lifespan, and John was a kid like 25 or something.
Yeah.
Or
so
25, 20.
So this is definitely is they are definitely Halsey's memories, and again, that's partly why it makes sense that they were some of the last things that are remaining, as far as having a artificial intelligence based on somebody's personality, somebody's memories and brain, something that's based on all of their brain patterns and everything. Having an artificial intelligence that's actually, having those things as kind of the last things that are remaining after their deletion. I feel like that was a very good explanation, a very solid explanation for how they put that out and how they kind of directed it, just because as far as in-universe it makes sense. That's one of the biggest issues that you see with a lot of things that, like a lot of games have, is where they'll break their own in-universe code, and like for the sake of realism or for the sake of something else. I like how in Infinite they very much try to stick with their in-universe code, and that's a really, that's kudos to them, because that's a really difficult thing to even accomplish. Because in a lot of games you see them break their own in-universe, establishment that they have, just for the sake of realism, for the sake of for the sake of story. Essentially, they'll break it, and it ends up either backfiring, or usually it ends up not being as overlooked as they were hoping. But it's a very good explanation as to why those echoes exist, and why we see these remnants of Cortana still around. And again, I'm a very technical person, so just seeing all of these things is very... I really appreciate it. I really appreciate it.
But Phil, as a resident IT expert, how does data create physical manifestations?
It doesn't. I mean, it doesn't with anything that we technically have. Minus through like holograms, which are very difficult to technically pull off. As far as with modern technology, we don't really have a lot of really strong holographic capabilities. We, like, for instance, what you see in Star Wars, where it's like, oh, these guys are walking all across this area there may be some of those things in like military tech, but even then they're not going to be anywhere near as advanced. Picture quality would probably even be worse than that. Just because trying to project light onto nothing, not easy. That is not easy. It is very, very difficult to project light on nothing. So I usually interpret this as, again, there has to be some level of suspension of disbelief, which is why that's kind of what I was discussing when people break their own rules. They kind of expect you to suspend disbelief in in-game stories and stuff, because you're already suspending disbelief that the story can happen. And in most video games, there's a lot of impossibilities that prevent that stuff from being happening. Whether or not it's like 50,000 years in the future, it's in a fantasy world or something. But as far as myself, I usually get very, very irked when they break their own rules and expect you to suspend disbelief for them breaking their own established in-universe rules that they wanted you to suspend your disbelief for, so that way those rules can happen. So it's like, I'm really happy that with Infinite, I didn't feel like they really suspended a lot of they really broke their own rules. There were a couple of times that were very, very minor, and usually it was mainly just for mechanical reasons, and I can understand that. But as far as like in general, that is one of my biggest pet peeves with story writing. I will have to talk with you a little bit about. We'll have to do a podcast or something about that sometime, because that is a seriously big pet peeve of mine, and you see it so frequently.
Yeah, that should be a topic.
So frequently.
For sure.
But if you ever do that I will have to be there to talk about that, because I think I will spend probably like as long as we've been going, and if not more, just discussing that one topic by myself.
Ranting with Phil.
You should call me Rant Surplus. There you go.
Surplus. special episode titled Nonsurplus
Yeah, there we
with
go.
Phil
Oh.
and Zeb.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
But
And
I mean,
Tim.
I do a lot of writing, and I'm a very technical person. So when I see these kind of aspects, and again, I feel pain, and I again admit not the best writer, but even you should be able to at least recognize these things, even if you aren't a super fantastic, super amazing writer.
We have had
should
a
be able
real
to at least
pet peeve
recognize.
with Phil, by the way.
It is a big, like thorn in my side,
Yeah.
spine in
No,
my,
it's not.
finger under my fingernail, bamboo under the fingernail, that kind of stuff. It is a very big pet peeve.
We should continue on though with the characters.
I feel like
Yeah.
we probably should. Escher, are we still talking about Cortana? Let's finish up talking about Cortana.
I think we should talk about Esheram. I think we said what you just said what we needed about Cortana, I'll just say like the last thing about her is how do you feel like I think Sheep's grief for her is very understandable. And how do you think he takes it to the end that she's gone?
I haven't finished the actual.
Well, I guess mostly for Tim.
Yeah, this is
Yeah.
gonna be for Tim.
Yeah.
I thought it was it really did a lot to tie in like the story of all three characters, accepting something new about like their reality, as well as for the story of the franchise as a whole, accepting that we're in new territory and that we have to let the past go.
All of the past.
They're all acknowledging that like we're on the road to something new here, and we're all like taking on a new role in this. So I felt like they did a really good job of having them all kind of, all the characters kind of have their moment of the past is gone. We're going to look forward to the future now. At the end of that, when they're all on the Pelican going back, and Chief there being like something like he's being open about this loss and the fact that like he's still committed to the mission, but he's went through something. I think they did a really good job of handling that and making it all emotions and those the storytelling of everything really tied together very well. I think.
Yeah, I was just gonna say. I think that as far as having a story of, I think it tells a very good story about. It tells a story of grief essentially, and Master Chief's grief with losing Cortana, and finding the weapon and realizing like, well, now I have something. I have to figure out if this is the new thing I'm going to protect. Is this my new Cortana? Essentially, is what he has to figure out. What can I do to prevent her from being? That's why he tried to delete her. For instance, he didn't want her to become what Cortana became. Then we have the weapon, has to come with the realization that they were from something. Again, they came from something that wasn't good anymore. At least that may have had good intentions, but quickly became something that went out of hand and was very dangerous and tried to destroy humanity almost. And then the weapon has to come to terms with that, as well as finding their own identity. And then we have the pilot who, he lost everything, had that whole entire conversation at the beginning. So we have the pilot who's going through his own grief, and it's a story of grief, as Tim had mentioned, in kind of three different ways to have handled it. But all three stories were done very well.
I feel let's talk about Etcham quickly and then go to the Harbinger because we still have a bunch of parts in our order and we've already ran for about 2 hours. So this most likely will hit a 3-hour. I know you have a film to get to, Tim. I don't want you with us though. I want you to be able to have a break.
Yes, I'll probably call it at 7 and then switch over to my own stream because I'm supposed to do some of that today.
Fair enough. Phil, if you want to, I don't think we could be done by 7. So I will wrap up near the end.
Fair.
Yeah,
that's fair.
That's totally fair, man. So let's do Etcham very quickly, and then let's go to Harbinger because I know there's things you'll want to say about them, Tim. So Etcham, just maybe like keep it like even 2 minutes each. What do you guys think of him and just the bandits in general? And the fact that they were fighting partly in a case because they lost their home world even.
Best monologue in Halo. I felt it was really soon having like a fully justified villain essentially. And the dudes being guys seen at the end with Chief and Eshram, I thought was really good. I really liked him. I thought he was a great addition to the game.
Yeah, I think that he's a really interesting. I'm not gonna say he's a full-on, or he's the full villain.
He's not.
I feel like that was
Yeah.
definitely Harbinger.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because Harbinger was in fact trying to, they were the one that set all that into motion, anyways. And also betrayed Escharum.
Yeah.
But I find it really interesting that the voice actor. I'm just gonna say, amazing job,
Oh,
freaking phenomenal job
incredible.
with Escharum.
Incredible.
Also, his motives were really interesting too. The fact that he was trying to, after what's his face, Atriox. There we go. After Atriox, vanished, because I don't honestly think he's dead. I don't think Atriox is dead. They just don't know what happened to him after the Infinity, was destroyed.
Yeah.
I have a feeling that he's going to be alive and come back in the future. So, because after Escharum, spoiler, I guess, does Escharum die? You kill Escharum?
Yeah, but he has a very. There will be a little bit of spoilers here for you, Phil.
Yeah, that's fine.
But,
That's fine.
Like, Atriox, we know will be back.
Yeah.
Like, it confirms he's not dead. They don't like to say about that. But Escharum, I really liked how he he was a warrior. He was a, chief, Echo 216, asked Chief, why are you treating him with respect? He's a monster. And Chief he's a warrior.
Yeah, he's a soldier hoping he made the right decision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just, he, even near the brink of death, Escharum, like, fight me, I'm not done. And Chief just holds him in his arms as he dies. As a sign of mutual respect, and I think especially after seeing what happened to their homeworld, kind of
Yeah.
understanding where this.
I'm not saying that they're justified in killing off, the Banished aren't necessarily justified in killing off, humans, and even the Covenant. They're not even necessarily justified for all of that.
No.
But I will say that it was very interesting to see how much he actually seemed to care about. He even had friends like the Elite. If you remember that one scene in the Elite where he's got.
I love that Elite design, by the way, with the
it's great.
prosthetics and blood blades, and they were close friends, and that's rare between brutes and elites.
Since the Covenant, essentially, because the Covenant basically had everything in a caste system.
Yep.
So that it's very, very different. But that's also why it's so interesting.
He definitely is, I think, the best villain since the Arbiter. I think.
And because the Arbiter becomes a friend, right?
Yeah. But
so we
he
have
was still an antagonist in Halo 2 for a bit. And
he's a better villain. I am gonna say he's a better villain than the Harbinger. In my opinion, he's a much better villain than the Harbinger.
He's the best villain 343 has made. By
Oh,
far.
yeah.
There's no doubt. Besides maybe Atriox, but we need to know. Atriox has to be a little more fleshed out. Had a story dedicated to him, like we had with Escharum, to really be able to put Atriox on that pedestal. Right now, he has the potential for that, but we've not seen it firsthand, really.
Oh, for sure, and that's what I'm really excited about for some future content.
Yeah.
They're going to be bringing back Atriox, and we're going to see him try and get revenge for Esharum's death, as well as trying to, trying to once again kill Master Chief because he failed the first time, as well as taking on, retaking the mantle of the leader of the.
We have 10 minutes left before 7, so the Harbinger. Let's go into it, and then Phil and I, you and I, or Harbinger quick, and then Tim, if you want to see a little bit about just thoughts on the gameplay change with open world nature, you are free to before you go if you have time, and then Phil and I will wrap up with the last few little segments. Okay.
Okay.
Harbinger. Phil first, and then Tim, you can just talk about whatever you want, and then maybe just, any final comments you want to say. I think that best. So, Phil.
Yeah, just as far as the Harbinger goes, definitely, I find a really interesting villain. Also, I will say we probably should have talked about, the best villain. The grunts definitely, but what is it called? Not the Observer, but the guy who's in that little, the little eyes. I can't remember. For the Forerunner, Forerunner bots.
And a monitor, the backup monitor.
Yeah, the monitor.
The moment I saw that guy, I'm like, you're gonna be a jackass to me.
Yeah.
Best villain. Because you fight him twice, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
The second fight. The second fight caught me off guard because I wasn't expecting that, and that was phenomenal.
I'm not surprised by that. I didn't want to kill that to the moment they saw it. They knew it could cause me.
It was great. It was great. But Harbinger, just as far as last thoughts that I have on it, she's very interesting because she's not like any of the other. She's not any of the races that we've seen so far, right?
No.
She's a brand new race, and like I think she's one of the Endless. I'm guessing that's probably that might very well be or she's the Harbinger for the Endless or whatever. And that's kind of how I see it. So I feel like she's very much not supposed to be. She may be responsible for all the events in Infinite, essentially, but she's not necessarily the final boss. She's kind of like, hey, I'm just the person who's here to, wake up the final boss, and when the final boss gets here, you'll be sorry.
We know that. Alright, I'm gonna tell a post-credit scene just for the sake of the podcast. I'm sorry, Phil.
Please. Again, I don't.
We see Atriots waking up, or really with a ton of silences of what we assume seem to be endless species.
Oh.
And I alluded to that she is waking up to endless.
Yeah.
Oh.
So.
Interesting. So I guess the Harbinger is the Harbinger for the Endless. That's kind of what I was trying to say. Is either she is an Endless or she is a Harbinger for them, which makes sense. I think she's the Harbinger for them. That makes sense. But that is all I have to say.
All right, Phil. Tim, you got floor really till 7 now. Go ahead. Sarah, Harbinger, any thoughts on changing the gameplay and how it fit the campaign? And if you want to see anything on any expansions or, vehicles or weapons you want to see added to the sandbox with expansions, go ahead. It's your show for the next 10 minutes.
Okay. Harbinger, I would be interested to see, I thought she did a real job of being a very mysterious, kind of enigmatic figure. Fun fight. And I am very interested to see kind of how bad or weird the Endless are, given that we know that from the Forerunner's timeline, humans in that period were also not the best and may have also contributed to the Forerunner final solution by going to war with them. So it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out. The gameplay, the mix of traditional Halo style level clearing with the overworld, I thought was really fun. Some of my favorite things were doing weird zipping around and doing insane juke plays with the dodge.
Have you guys seen I want to know to know. Have you seen people? Have you tried to use a spiker to launch a warthog and grapple onto a warthog while it's flying?
Oh,
Oh yes,
I've seen
yeah,
that. I've seen that when they
Yeah.
go like 15,000
yeah.
units.
Great.
Something insane.
Continue, man.
It's beautiful. Right now I'm going through and clearing out the all my markers on the overworld, and then I'll probably go back and play the campaign again all the way through.
I still have to get
It's
all the skulls too. I've
yeah,
gotten only one. I've only found one.
yeah. I haven't been able to find any of the skulls blind, so I have to pull up a guide and go through and collect them.
Sad
Found
thing is
one
that there
blind.
still is 2 skulls you cannot get at all after you play the first mission because you can't repeat the first 2 areas.
Yes, yeah,
So if you miss them, you miss them until they add a replay in the campaign specific levels as an update, which they claim they are working on at the moment.
yes.
So if you miss out on those when you do your first run, unless you do a whole new campaign run, you're not getting those things.
That
Yes.
really sucks. So
Yeah.
So you got to restart the whole entire campaign
And
essentially.
there's also like at least 1 keychain and multiple and like 2 stances and a few other things that claim you can unlock it for the campaign and the multiplayer, and no. You can beat the game on legendary, you can beat it on the last show, you can get every little knick-knack in a game at 100%, and it's still locked.
Interesting.
So people have no fucking clue how the heck you unlock it. It's like the biggest bloody mystery in the community.
Interesting.
So
Somebody
Yeah.
forgot to switch a bit from 1 to a 0 or 0 to 1.
Yes.
It's like,
That's fine. Alright.
yeah.
Yep. But yes, I'm loving it. The sandbox and the way it plays is super fun. And some of the guns I didn't understand at first, just in multiplayer, I'm getting into respect for. Like, I now understand the Ravager and the Bulldog after playing through the campaign. I'm like, oh, I get these use profiles now. Yeah. And once you figure out like how to get like headshots with the shock rifle, and they can carry that over in multiplayer, that feels so good.
Pulse rifle, not storm. I said this last time during multiplayer too. That Halo 5
Yeah.
rifle.
Yes.
Halo 4 is the pulse carbine. I think that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. But some of these assassination missions also are like some of my favorite things because there's so many ways you can approach those. I think they're a really fun addition to the game structure. So I'm looking.
can't wait till they add in assassination animations because then you grapple on somebody coming behind them and just.
That'd be nice. Tim, is there anything like any extra stuff for the sandbox you would want to see added in update, or even like new mechanics like the FOB system expanded upon by any chance, or Dothy.com where you don't want it, or like OTSTs we don't have,
Yeah,
like,
I think it'd be interesting to add in more marine variants for support. I'm not sure I want them to expand too much upon FOBs because I don't want it to turn into Fallout 4.
Yeah.
Because those were super annoying.
Fallout what up?
The towns in Fallout 4 that you had to consistently defend.
Okay, yeah, no.
Settlement needs your help. Another settlement needs your help. Oh.
Yep, no. But all ODSTs, supported fours, like you could have them as, support or even elite if the arbiter shows up compared to normal marines. But
and I'm not sure about like other additions other than I'm interested to see because obviously they don't want to change your core abilities too much throughout because then you get into an issue where like you have things in the sandbox that aren't necessarily in the multiplayer. But I was to see how they continue to reward you for collecting Spartan cores in future installments in the story.
Actually, I've heard certain ideas, right? For example, if Lock has its own little campaign expansion, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can have a camo one, since the idea is, you have active camo, it's in a campaign, but it's not really an armor core in a multiplayer, but it's not an armor core campaign yet, really.
Yeah.
It's locked at kind of this lone man hunter, surviving, right?
It makes sense
Yeah.
for him to have the
Yeah.
camo.
Or even
Yeah.
like if you want a Spartan core of something that can come to the campaign later or whatnot,
Yeah.
is in Halo Wars 2, Red Team had, I believe, like leaping and hijacking things.
Yeah.
That could be a Spartan core. You
Yeah.
have Jerome, and the kind of like the bit like bounce or leap to get, and that classically makes sense with verticality of the areas.
Yes.
A bit
Yeah.
too, with a thought. So
Be very interested. So yeah, I'm just excited to see where it goes from here, and I'm loving the multiplayer aspect of it. The fact that there's like a whole new life breathed into the multiplayer community again. So I'm loving that, and competitive is great right now. And yeah, that's where I'm at.
sorry to rest it, but that was great, man.
Yes.
And thank you for coming today.
Yeah.
If I do any ranked multiplayer, Tim, and Infinite, or if I ever do, I will try.
Yes, we'll boost everyone to gold. I couldn't find the other couple guys who were on Clan Kriko, so Kriko's gone, but we have created a new clan called Clan Butt Pucker.
Oh,
So
God.
Pucker up, Buttercup.
exactly.
Tim, anything else you want to share just about yourself or the game?
I feel like that's a good note to go out on.
Fair enough. Anything you want to share about yourself or where to find you, or just...
On everything at TimTKWriter, on Twitch at Aggrobacon, Wolf Hunter issue 1 coming out next year.
Do you have any... Can you say exactly, like, when next year around, or that's not...
Not sure. It depends on the letterer at this point.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, I'm still very excited for that. I want to read that
Yes.
so badly. But thank you, my friend. And I hope you enjoy Spider-Man, and have a good stream tonight. And we will be by most likely as soon as we're done here.
So,
I'm already loading up the stream just so I can have it at
Ooh.
least.
And most likely, well, I should do that too.
Okay.
I'll do
All
that
right.
too right now.
Well, I'll see you guys in a little bit then.
See you in a little bit, dude.
What?
All right, you and I. And
It's
the
just you and me here now.
first time it's just the two of us on a show.
I know it's crazy. I wonder what exactly we might
We
could
meet up
happen.
each week to talk, but it's the first time on live internet.
I know it's so weird.
Yeah.
Um,
All right,
we're streaming. We're doing this. So
so yeah,
let's get to the point of let's move forward. I do
Well,
want to.
do any gameplay
I
thoughts?
will want to eat I will want to eat food here sometime soon. So
Yeah.
I might
We're
I
gonna
might
wrap
need
up
to run
soon.
out and grab food once we wrap up.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then
of
after
course.
that we can play some MCC.
Agreed.
But
That worked good for me. I will
Um,
work out for it too, but any thoughts on gameplay though, quickly before we
oh my
go to-
goodness. So just
Yeah.
as far as like gameplay goes, the one thing I kind of wish is that we could have even slightly faster grapple shot.
Yeah.
Just because sometimes it's like I'm swinging from tree to tree and it's just waiting, and I land it and then I grab it.
Yep.
It's like oh well.
One thing I was into with the FOPs, by the way, which Tim didn't mention, but is on one side, I don't want the FOPs just sort of be super expanded upon, right? Because I think it's nice when you do too much and it just becomes a different game.
Yeah.
But I also kind of would love to see OTST drops. And there's still things, right, that we can't really have, like they said earlier. I think I mentioned last week, they said we don't really have a Warthog level, Warthog run level or the Scorpion level. You have to make that yourself, right? And we can do that. I'm a little far from the mic. We can do that, but we don't have. We can't do that with like Pelican airdrops or OTST landings or,
Right.
And I want people, if we're not having a very, like on one side we had a very choreographed story, and it was really good. But those big moments can't happen as much possibly with the nature of story is now, that I wanted ability, a way to be able to do those big moments some way. You know?
Especially with co-op campaign when that comes out inevitably. It's
Like,
gonna be nice to have those actual, those moments that feel like epic. Those
yeah,
epic moments that you get.
exactly. And like, I wouldn't mind having like a little beacon or something for ODST drop pods, or
Yeah, or like the because they have the drops. I mean, I can envision them actually having something like the
yeah,
as you were
you
saying, ODST drops, because you get those in multiplayer. Like you get drops in multiplayer,
wait,
or not
wait,
ODST, not
yeah.
ODST.
It can't be. We have to banish drop pods.
Sorry, I'm thinking of not drop pods, but like equipment drops.
Oh,
Like
that. Yeah,
like once we have like an actual established, like we have a ship in the sky, we have an established ship in the sky, something to provide support.
proper
Um,
support.
yeah, proper
Where we're
support.
not just.
And again, that's
Yeah,
something in the future, because right now, again, they've established Infinity's gone.
yeah. With
Completely.
Infinity, most like, I'm not sure if it completely destroyed. Like, now it's time to cancel that.
Well, it was broken in half. It's broken in
Yeah,
half.
but that's a
With
big ass ship. Like, if it broke in half and it's on a ring, that's still a lot of. Not saying it'll fly again, but that's a lot of components and a lot of tech.
again,
And
that's why we're
gear.
going to probably be seeing people like Halsey coming in.
Yeah.
That's probably why we're going to be seeing some people who we knew were on the Infinite.
Infinity.
Infinity.
Yeah.
The Infinite.
Oh,
We knew we were on the Infinity.
We'll be in
but,
the Infinite.
but we'll be in
Infinite.
the Infinite. Yes, the Infinite.
But we don't know yet. Like, we
Yeah,
know Lashley most likely is on a ring somewhere. He got off the ship.
yeah.
Palmer, like, I know the actress for Sarah Palmer says you've recorded voice lines for Palmer. And we did not hear that. She was mentioned, but we did not hear her speaking.
Did we hear her in any of the voice logs?
No.
You've gotten every single one of them?
No, I went to I saw the wiki, like, it said mentioned,
okay.
like, there's not actual.
Okay.
So,
I just wanted to make sure, because I know that there's a lot of voice, and there are some characters who actually talk.
like
in voice.
Lashley, Lashley is in-game, but not in-game.
Exactly. They're
So-
not an actual, like, we don't see any character models for them.
And they did a good job, by the way, of telling that story. Like, those are really entertaining to listen to.
Oh yeah, every single one of them has been phenomenal. There's one that's like really short, which is kind of weird, but in general, they're all actually fairly well-rounded in terms of like what they have to say. And if you get certain ones during certain missions, they actually tell different stories.
Yeah.
So it is really interesting.
I like that.
It is really interesting.
Um,
One thing I do want to comment on before we
ahead.
kind of move on. I did want to say, like, if we are going to do any FOB kind of expansion stuff, how I imagine is there's going to be a different type of base.
Yeah.
And it's kind of probably be like the main focus. Like, there's going to be UNSC like base of operations that they have. That's like they had set up after the Infinite had crash landed.
Yeah.
And had kind of set up like established a really
Like
strong
a proper base, like not these little
Yeah.
outposts.
Yeah, not an FOB, but an actual like a full on like full on base, kind of like what we see with the towers that or like the different bases that the bandits have.
And that made sense, it's like the Unity forces that crashed, that because again, like I said earlier, we're at a tiny sliver. Like the rain had broken up. First of all, that broken apart is a large piece. And we're actually not on a rain, we're on a broken apart of the rain in that void space. So if the Infinity landed somewhere else in a rain, right, and multiple other UNSC forces guaranteed landed around there, right, it's just logical to turn the Infinity, this city-like ship into your base of operations.
Exactly. Again,
So-
it makes sense that they'd have a full on actual like base of operations that they'd have established as almost as soon as they landed.
Yeah.
And they would, or very shortly thereafter, something that they would have that they would try to attempt to establish communication, something that they would try to have, that would be able to communicate with the rest of the troops. Let them know if there's any other survivors. That would make sense.
They could have lost that by the banished by now.
Oh, absolutely.
Which could be an nice part of the expansion of, Chief goes to a different part of the reign, right? Fights Lashley, Palmer, Halsey, we're all, and they say we have to recapture Divinity, and you recapture the base.
Yeah.
And then you get all the extra support.
Yeah, something like that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
I can't see why they. I mean, I could see why they wouldn't do it if they're like, oh well, that's too much of a time sink when we want to tell these other stories over here. I think that makes sense if they wanted to
Of
use their
course.
characters for other stories. But as far as them doing something like as an actual expansion, I could see them doing that kind of an expansion. That would make sense to me.
Same here.
It's not something that they'd necessarily be like. Again, that's not necessarily like the main thing that they would be doing, but that's probably going to be one that we see here in maybe even the not so distant future.
Agreed.
Maybe in like 2 or even 3 years we'll
Yeah.
actually see that. So that'd be
Well,
kind of interesting.
I'm hoping. How long do you think? How many years until expansion so we actually get help?
It'll probably be this next. Well, maybe not even this next expansion because this next one's going to be Atriox, obviously.
Yeah.
Because they show. However, I have a feeling that Atriox is probably still going to even stick around.
Oh, I think they'll be around for years.
I think he's going to be around for
a while.
few expansions. Yeah. He may even take on the role of basically what would be the new Arbiter,
Yeah.
where he starts off as an enemy and maybe eventually
Becomes
with the
an ally.
endless, and maybe even if there's like a reignition of the Covenant against humanity, maybe even join either in an uneasy alliance or as more like actual full-on alliance. Like maybe something like that would have happened.
That
I
could be
don't know.
interesting.
That would be an interesting take on it, and I would definitely be curious to see how they would do that. But again, this is all speculation because
Of course. Like, we're purely a speculation at this point. Like, I don't want us to be stranded on a reign without any support or without any rescue team for, a very long time. Because I don't feel it's weird that the UNSC would abandon the Infinity, their main flagship, for multiple years, or the Arbiter would, or...
and also the fact that you wouldn't hear they wouldn't have some sort of slip space communication.
Or just,
Because they should be. It would make less sense for them not to have that. But you know what? I'm sure that there are some funky shenanigans that may happen.
Agreed. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say. I mean, of course, as of right now, I don't envision him necessarily getting help in the next expansion.
Agreed.
But by the one after that, if we don't get one in this next expansion, we should have at least gotten it for the one after that.
Within like a year.
Well, a year or two. Again, a year or
two.
two, depending on whether or not we get
That would,
if we get assistance with Atriox.
yeah.
Because if Atriox is going to be our
Yeah.
next enemy or our next main
Ally.
antagonist,
Oh.
well, our next main antagonist because of the
Yeah.
endless arrival, because that's the next.
Yeah.
I think that's what they
It
they
seems like that
copyrighted
they
it.
hit to the, yeah. Yeah, Hilo and Endless.
The endless, yeah. I think that's the next major. Those are the next major antagonists that we
Yeah.
have. Whether or not they're going to be true antagonists or not, I don't know. I don't know what the nature
of
of the
course.
endless is. I
It's
don't think
too-
anybody truly does.
It's too mysterious right now.
Far too mysterious, far too little information. But the
Yep.
truth is, they're going to be at some level are going to be an antagonist.
Yes.
Whether or not they're the main antagonist or it just so happens to be like, oh, they've woken up and
Yeah.
they're coming to arrive and they see us and they think that we start killing them. Okay, we're an enemy.
Yep.
Like maybe that's the full extent of it. But at some level, they're going to be our enemies. They're going to be an antagonist for us.
Mhm.
And you know what? That's kind of. I would be surprised if they didn't. But again, there's too little information to know whether or not they have the potential to be allies or if they're just pure evil.
Yeah. Agreed. I think we don't really have to talk about what works and what does not. We kind of talked about the whole show.
Yeah, I will have a comment.
Go ahead.
The
And-
one thing that I do feel like the game can suffer from on occasion
Mhm.
is I kind of referred to it earlier as the open world syndrome. Not this not this podcast, but during the multiplayer podcast, I had mentioned it.
Yeah.
It can suffer a little bit from open world syndrome.
Mhm.
And by that, what I'm referring to is that every once in a while, when you're in the middle of going through missions or whatnot, it doesn't really tell you what you need to do.
Yeah.
And while that's a good thing in some aspects, in a game that's not necessarily supposed to be a fully open world game, it can be really confusing, because I've had periods of time where I go to the complete opposite end of the map from where I was supposed to go, because that's where I thought that I was supposed to go.
Yeah.
And when it turns out that it's not, I have to make my way all the way back, or I've got to fast travel or find some air travel to be able to access that. And that can be really frustrating when it takes like 20 minutes to get to the opposite end of the map.
And like, there's definitely, I will say we don't have the sandbox for co-op gameplay yet at all. Like, I actually feel like if we had, I don't know how big co-op will be. If it's only 2 people, then it's fine. If it's 4 people, then that's different. And I'm hoping it's 4 people, just so we can have a full squad.
Yeah.
But, and I think it will be 4, but...
I mean, I don't see why they wouldn't do 4, because especially if they're going to be doing further expansions to the game and having more they have to do 4.
But, like, it would be annoying with just... because we don't have proper transport. And in fact, like, even with... especially if you do what Tim said, if you don't actually like do a whole new sandbox area, you actually just expand upon a map more and more and more, right? Itself for a while. We need more air vehicles. And faster. The fact that we only have the Wasp, and only the Wasp, and we kind of have the Banshee, but...
You basically get the Wasp at the very end of the game, too, so it's...
It actually kind of weird for me that the very last thing you get to the Rocket Hog.
Yeah, that is so
that
weird.
Just felt odd to me, but whatever. Not to have the Rocket Hog, but I'm like, that just felt odd, but whatever. But no. Like, as I mentioned before, you know, I still want those weapons like the shotgun, the Spartan laser, etc., Spiker. But there anything that you feel is missing from the sandboard, I'll say this. Anything you felt we really liked about the vehicles or weapons, like actually how you felt they operated in the sandbox, and then what do you want is specifically vehicle and weapons added that you feel like after playing the campaign and playing the sandbox, can you feel of how, you know, kind of the open world nature goes. What do you think fits best from, like, our old armory of all our stuff we had?
Well, we've already discussed the elephant, and
yeah, of course.
We've already discussed the elephant, and with there being a potential sand biome, and then highly likely that it's going to be sand.
Yep.
Horrible stuff. You know, it's coarse, rough. It gets everywhere.
Nice.
That's why I don't like
Skywalker.
That's why I don't like it.
Yeah.
But no, with there being sand in the next expansion, with a high probability of there being sand in the next expansion, because again, it hasn't come out yet.
Of course.
It makes sense that they would have things like the elephant. Heck, there might even be some new vehicles that we see, kind of like we had discussed with the, or I guess they're not necessarily new, but you don't really drive them to begin with. The kind of like the what are they called? They're like almost like I can't think of the word. My brain is completely blank.
Game from we tried it forward, jumping down to the infinite, but we can't use.
Yeah. Bring back semi-truck, please. Make semi-truck.
Yes.
And forklift. Forklift is of course the most important vehicle, as those of you who remember last time.
Yep.
Yeah, no. As far as like actual vehicles go, I'm not as upset with the selection we have. Again, you had kind of talked about Pelican.
I love them, but
talked about the Pelican. That makes sense to bring in. Have Pelican be more accessible or drivable, even.
Like
and bring back the what are the copters that you get in Reach?
The Falcon. Like
those are the Falcons.
The
like the Falcon too.
Falcon.
That makes so much sense.
The Falcon makes so much sense for the sake of, again, how vertical a map is. thought that would co-op with all those extra seats, you know? You,
Yeah, it
like,
makes
you
so
could
much sense to have.
2 Marines and the gunners, and then you could have, like, your 3 buddies in the seats and a pilot. That's just logical to me.
Yeah, I mean, the one reason why I would say it wouldn't make sense is because having those things in space doesn't really make sense, but you still use them when dropping them off on different rings or whatever. So it still makes sense to have
But
them.
we're not in space also, we're in atmosphere. The Marine has its own atmosphere.
Oh, that's true. That's
The
true.
Wasp would work in space as well if...
Oh, no. Sorry, I was referring to the Infinity even carrying them.
Oh, that. Well...
But it still makes
Oh,
sense
yeah.
in my opinion, because again, it's not like the Infinite.
And also, the
Infinity.
Falcon was redesigned. Like, again, it has a whole new design again. Now, again, it just feels weird to do that for a commercial and do that for... Like, that makes no sense to me. The Hornet also was in advertising. I'm like, okay, so the Hornet I also feel at a high probability, just for the fact that they made a brand new Hornet for Halo 2 Anniversary, and they did not have to do that. Like, that is purely their own vehicle. That's not recycled code, I think. And now what did it exist in Halo 2? So, you could easily bring that to... You have an idea how to do that to Infinite, then, I think. And again, that's a vehicle that could also make a lot of sense, I think, with the vertical nature of stuff.
I mean, that definitely would make sense for them to have the Hornet, because again, you have the Hornet. Definitely having the Falcon in there makes
Falcon
so much
makes
sense.
the most sense. The Falcon makes the most sense out of any bloody old vehicle from Halo, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's honestly,
Hands down.
I'd be surprised if they didn't do it.
I'd be shocked if we do not get the Falcon in that's like 3 years.
They probably will not do. They probably will not do the Falcon in the co-op update.
Most likely not. If they were,
that would make sense for them to do it then. But
it would,
yeah,
but it's not gonna happen.
Yeah,
the Falcon. If they were, data miners would have found that already.
Oh yeah.
There'd be evidence in the code for the Falcon by now.
Oh
and
yeah,
I think
for sure.
there is a tiny bit, but not to the level of it coming in co-op.
Yeah,
which, hey, who the hell knows? They could just drop it off as a surprise thing, you know? You never really know, but...
It's like, what, maybe like 10 megs for a model, and, you know, maybe, you know, 100 megs if they're doing 4K textures or something, or...
Like...
I mean, they can easily drop that off in an update if they really wanted to.
The co-op, in all honesty, if I were to guess what vehicles would come in a co-op update, okay? I'm gonna say 2. Maybe 3, alright? Not say 2, maybe 3 as maximum, maybe more, maybe less. But
well, the Gauss Warthog, I think, is one that's going to be coming.
I think the Gauss Warthog is high on the list, right? At least by the end of the year, if not co-op and Forge for sure.
End of next year, notably.
Yeah. Well, yeah, pretty much. We only have like 1 more week or so, or 2 more weeks of 2021, which is so weird.
Yeah, we've got about 2 weeks. I know.
But... and then
crazy year.
Oh yeah. Past 2 years been crazy, man. But, so the God's Warthog, I think the Cougar is another one. Because that model seems to be pretty much done. And, like, you can ride on a vehicle. It's kind of like, almost like a Grey Cat armored car from World War II.
Yeah.
So, and that, yeah, like the look of it seems like this is between the Tank and a Warthog, a fast-moving vehicle with multiple people can ride on. That sounds like, okay, if this can be done by co-op, it makes a lot of sense for a co-op update.
Yeah, I agree.
And you need some sort of extra troop transport vehicle that's not a Razorback for co-op update. I think.
Yes. I do want to say that let's bring back, you know, classic Scorpion, having people be able to sit on it.
Yeah, I was disappointed by that. Like, I was shocked. it'd be nice if they update that too. I think the skiff. I don't know about the skiff. I know that will come. I think that is definitely will come.
I think that's what I was thinking of the skiff. I couldn't remember the word. Couldn't remember the word.
The skiff. I think that will come whenever we get that to a new area and a new biome with the desert. Partly based on...
Desert makes sense for the skiff.
It does.
The desert makes sense for the skiff.
Partly because how far the model is from being ready, or how far what it looks like, right? Fact that not to be even supposed to be drivable by people. The fact that we don't know when the actual new area will come, which I don't think will come when a co-op update happens. And much as cool as that would be, I honestly don't think we'll get a new area in the campaign until like the Forge update, most likely.
Oh, we're not gonna be seeing, I don't think, a campaign update until
I'd have 9 months away at Forge. I'd say earliest Forge.
Yeah, I'd say
later than
I'd say it's not even gonna be until a ways after Forge. I say it'll probably be at the end of the year next year at the earliest.
Like Christmas, like exactly a year from now, basically.
Yeah, November, maybe November, because usually companies like to do big November updates or things. So maybe I can see that, but likelihood is December, maybe mid-December at the latest, or at the earliest.
Especially you want it before the holiday season, especially with like campaigns are going to be paid expansions, right?
Wanting people to buy things for Christmas.
Yeah, Black Friday, all that shit. So that makes the most sense. So we're about a year. The one thing I really don't want to have happen is us not getting extra vehicles or content or weapons. I waited a whole year for that.
They're going to be doing the Forge update, and then there's another update here in like 6 months, right?
Yeah, that's a co-op update.
That's the co-op update. Well, that's not 6 months. That is in May, right?
Well, that's May, but that's still...
I think that's
January, February, March, April, May. That's 5 months now, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
But before every 6 months when the multiplayer launched. So yeah, 5 months from now.
The one sad thing I am gonna say about the co-op campaign happening is that now we're not gonna. It makes them add a little bit of extra time before they're gonna be doing the co-op campaign, or they're gonna be sending the new missions and whatnot, because they have to test them for co-op as well.
Yeah.
But that's okay. So, I mean, that's something they should have been doing anyways. But
the one other thing is I really do hope we get the Pelican as with things like bigger. Also because I did evidence that there is a actual prompt to get inside Pelican. And like the thing seems to be actually a fully usable vehicle in Forge. Allegedly. So why the heck waste that, you know?
I know. Again, if this is something that they're going to be doing for...
Again, we want to have these and make the big moments yourself. Well, give us a Pelican, let us load up Marines, let us load up people. And it'd be cool if we could even, like, grab a Warthog with the Pelican, right? Attach it, just fly off.
I'm going to say the one reason why I'm a little bit... Or the one thing that I'm most worried about is height. I think they need to increase the map's height.
I agree.
Because the biggest issue with the game that I've noticed is that if you go too high, it causes you to teleport down. And that can cause problems if you're in a flying vehicle.
Yep.
So that's the one issue that I've noticed. But I do hope that they increase the height, just so that way that stuff doesn't happen. And maybe just prevent your machine from going past the maximum height that...
Well, there's that, but also, I think that could be partly solved by just having areas be lower, too. Like, the height is actually pretty tall if you think about how low you can go.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can go pretty low on the ground, too. Like, on the edges of the maps. So, but no, I agree with you. Anything else besides... I think that's it for Hill.
I think that's everything that... Yeah, I think that's everything that I really wanted to talk about and discuss.
Same here. We highly recommend it, I think, both of us, right?
Overall, I'd say I'd give it a 8.5 to 9.5 out of 10. So I wouldn't say that's quite a 9.5 yet. I'd say it's probably closer to that 8.5. So 8.5 out of 10 for as far as stories and everything goes. Really solid moments. Probably best
Yeah.
campaign since Reach or 3,
And one
depending
of
on
the
which one you
best
grew up.
single player experiences, I think, of the year.
Oh yeah, best single
Like,
player.
if this is not nominated for the Game Awards next year for the story, I will be.
I mean
I'll be
that
real
and Pokemon
surprised.
Legends Arceus. Those are the two games. I'm very excited about Legends Arceus. So that's something
I gotta play
something that
Pokemon with you guys. I gotta.
oh man. Well, it's the most interesting Pokemon game that we'll be seeing, I think, ever so far. Just because it's so different than
Well, go
the
ahead,
norm.
tell. It's random talk time, so yeah.
It is indeed random talk time. Well, Legends Arceus is really interesting to me because it's taking a lot from the vein of Monster Hunter.
Okay.
Apparently, people who have played it and play tested it say that it is the longest. It is the longest Pokemon campaign to date,
Okay.
or the Pokemon story to date. So there's a lot of really interesting mechanics that they added to it. So now you yourself have a health bar as a trainer. So it's
Okay.
interesting
How
because
does
you
that
can
work?
you can be attacked by wild Pokemon
All right.
if you're not careful.
How do you
And
defend yourself?
you can dodge. You can
Can you send your
uh,
Pokemon out? Or
yep. You can send your Pokemon out to fight. Um, you can also like throw smoke bombs at Pokemon or try and catch them with Pokeballs.
oh,
Apparently there's also crafting system now, so you can craft your own Pokeballs, which makes sense because they've talked about that in Pokemon within Pokemon lore. There's already crafting a Pokemon of Pokeballs using
cool.
apricorns or something like that.
I kind of really want to play this. I gotta get myself a damn Switch.
Oh, it looks really interesting. I need to get a new Switch because my Switch is not going to be able to handle it because my Switch is a first gen that is slowing down because of age.
Of course.
So I'm really sad about that. So I need to get a new Switch, but unfortunately, getting one right now is almost impossible.
Because of availability or just.
Yeah,
price?
availability.
Yeah.
Also, I have car payments that I have to make now, so that's also
important. That's more important. That
slightly more
take-
important than
take care
getting a
of that.
Switch.
Yes.
I've already paid for Legends Arceus though. I pre-ordered it.
Fuck,
It's what it is.
I think within the like for me, my 2-bit tech stuff, right? Like, is still a new monitor, and I still would not want that remarkable tablet to write.
Oh,
But-
like the ones that are like basically like paper,
yeah,
but
exactly.
yeah, those things are so cool.
I want it because I remember stuff better as most people. I think writing it on paper, and I just like the feeling. But I also don't want to go through 50 dozen pieces of paper, and like it'd be nice to have a sensation of my memory, while also having the unlimited availability with digital.
That makes complete sense. I completely get that. It really is kind of interesting. Those things are.
Yeah.
It'd be really nice to have one of those myself because I often get like, oh, I've got the perfect writing idea, right before I go to bed, or right while I'm lying in bed, eyes closed. That moment, 5 seconds away from pure sleep bliss,
Yep.
and then it's just, oh my goodness, I just had this idea.
I want that, but I don't know when, but I really now want to switch because I want to play this with you guys.
Dude,
I
also
want to play
play
Pokemon with you
Breath
guys.
of the Wild 2 is supposed to come out next year.
Oh, I've heard Breath of the Wild was amazing. I want to play that too.
Breath of the Wild is amazing. Play Breath of the Wild. Get Breath of the Wild 2 when that comes out because
Yeah.
it looks like there's some really interesting mechanics. Legends Arceus is coming out. That's also a really big excitement for me. I've been waiting for that game since I heard about it, and I heard that they were going to like completely change the Pokemon, the Pokemon mouthfeel.
Hey,
Basically,
will
is
there
gonna be
be
completely different.
Gen 2 and Gen 3 Pokemon in it?
Oh yeah,
Sick.
yeah. There's actually one of the starters is funny enough a Gen 2 starter,
Really?
Cyndaquil.
Wait, really?
Cyndaquil, yeah, Cyndaquil is one of the
Yes.
starters in there.
Oh, they're so
Cyndaquil,
happy. Who's the other
Oshawott
starters?
and Rowlet.
Okay.
Oshawott and Rowlet, just because of their connections to feudal Japan,
Fair.
or at least that's what's speculated. We won't know until actually it comes out here in January. So it's coming out next month.
Will the Pokemon follow you around, or no?
I don't know. I don't know.
Fair.
But it makes sense for them to be able to because they
Yeah.
kind of already do that in a a lot of the more recent games anyways.
Fair.
Sword and Shield were people bashed on them for good reason, but there's definitely a lot of merit to them.
I,
I was just gonna say that like the DLC saves Pokemon Sword and Shield in my opinion. Playing through it on its own it gets pretty boring pretty quick, but the
Fair.
DLC is really interesting. The
Fair.
DLC is a lot of fun.
what did it do that changed?
Well, they're new areas that are basically feel a lot more open world.
Fair.
Not like the full open world where you can crawl, like you can climb walls and you can, you have
Yeah.
like massive freedom. But it
Of
felt like
course.
there's a lot more, like it just felt a lot more open, and that's kind of what Pokemon Legends Arceus is supposed to feel like.
Nice.
A lot more of the really positive aspects of Pokemon Sword and Shield.
Nice.
We don't know again until it actually happens, but from what it sounds like, it's like a super long story and like just
yeah,
again
I like
really
this.
really interesting. So I'm really
I like
excited
this.
to probably play it and not finish it because I won't ever have time to. As much as I love Pokemon, I do not ever have time to play it much
Well-
anymore. I still haven't finished Sparkling or
We-
Shining Pearl and
We gotta do a Pokemon episode, like, at some point, because there's so many, like, you and a couple of buddies of mine, I don't want to say their names, just so I don't, blast them over there, that people like, why don't you come? But, tell you guys all together and just talk Pokemon, but that would be a blast. For me, what I've been playing lately, it's just, I've been still playing the Warhammer Battle Center game. Got a regional campaign with, I got to grab the DLC for that game with the extra units and going for the campaign again with that. Since I also part-time finishing things and never finished that story, so trying to do that properly this time. And then I've been trying 2 new indie games out in Motortown, which I mentioned to you earlier, which
Yep.
is a little driving game with my decided realistic driving physics. And very, block animations, but cute a bit. And you need to be a taxi driver, bus driver, delivery man, drive cement trucks, dump trucks, all sorts. You can go on racetracks, Lamborghinis, electric cars. You could be a cop, you could be an ambulance driver, pull people over in a police car, all sorts of things. Bus driver, also do it. That's a really kind of relaxing game of like, and also the game has an autopilot mode, so when I'm getting a little tired, I'll just like, because I want to get to a new car, I just want to have some game in the background, I'm like, I'll put you on autopilot, let the game see what it does, and I have self-port on, or like a murder podcast on the side of my laptop, and listen to that.
Makes sense.
Yeah, and then I've been trying to game Ready or Not, which anyone has ever played the SWAT series, are you familiar with it, Phil?
I am not. The name sounds familiar, but I have.
It's kind of like the old tactical shooter, a little like the old Rainbow Six games, where you're a SWAT team, and it's made by Mike Detected, a modding team, and they're making their own spiritual successor to that game. Many people are calling it like SWAT 5, even though that never was made.
Right.
And the game is really good. Like, I've heard multiple people say like this it's more polished than most AAA games are released, and this is early access. And they claim that, like, the game doesn't have PvP yet. Does PvE. You lead a squad of AI troop men. You can do loadouts. You can have different type of armor, bit of customization. You can do online with a group of friends for PvE. They say PvP will come, they already have a build for it, they just chose not to add it to early access, but early backers, who they've been doing alpha tests privately for over a year now, I think, and like, people played it, they said it's good, it's not out yet for the public, my understanding is a proper campaign is supposed to come, and they claim that this will come out, like the game will fully release in just a year from now. Which I will admit feels a little high hopes here. It feels a little unrealistic, but I'll follow it, and it still is good. Like, I remember for the longest time there was like to be announced, right? Like, I thought it was supposed to come out like in the spring for early access. And when that didn't happen, I actually bought Game Zero Hour, which similar, and it's still a good game, right? And I even noticed that I like police SWAT type game that I'm keeping my eye on, but it Ready or Not finally came out, and I'm trying it, and it honestly is great. And if you like tactical shooters, right? Close quarter tactical shooters, where the game really has rules of engagement of only shoot when you give it a clear to shoot. Don't shoot civilians, you have to find all the civilians, rescue them. Basically, you have to confirm kills, confirm casualties, store or, kind of collect evidence. And like when you press F, you basically, like the way you handle a target or a person is, you talk to them, then you have to cuff them to either secure a civilian and then confirm that you have them. And then you basically just press F and you'll have your guy just like yell, this is the police, and get to the ground. And if it's criminal, if they start shooting at you, then possibly shoot back. But, so yeah. Kind of a different type of shooter that you often don't see in a AAA market. And I'd say, besides Halo, really, I've been more tired of the AAA market, more or less, lately. So, I've been trying more, indie stuff. Some stuff's still really big, like Star Citizen, which, while that is not really AAA game, it also is weird story of that whole thing, and then things like Ready or Not, or Jeffrey's Protocol, or, multiple things, and there's games I've been bad or early access that did let me down, that were flops, that, were still in development, that I don't really have much faith in anymore, but, this seems like it might be a really good one. And it still is a good game, so I recommend it. And it's getting stellar reviews, so. Both are good. Both. The other one is Motor Town. It says, if you want something Desert Chill and relax with, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's also a very good game for that. And they'll be adding more stuff to community, at least in both team, but I'll just say Motor Town for sure, because that's the one I actually looked at their Discord. Seems to be very friendly. The devs respond to you really quickly, really nice. I put up a question about something, and within like 10 minutes, the one dev in the Discord immediately responded to me. And good communication, it seems. And even if you're a bit car fanatic and you love cars, there's a whole Discord chat there of just like, post cars you want added and see if we can implement it. And just photos of vehicles. So.
People just are like, hey, add this.
Yeah, exactly. Just like muscle cars, sports cars, trucks, all sorts of things.
Pretty great.
I'm like, alright, cool. So, and yeah, and that's really is it. There's not much else on my side either. I will say I don't know what we're going to do for the next couple of weeks. Like,
well, we can't do.
I have. There's the Christmas thing I want to cover, but I'm not sure when or how. And I know he talked about Spider-Man, the week of release, but I should have remembered it is holidays for Christmas and New Year's, and everyone's busy. So we might go offline for a few weeks. We might try to do an episode on the not weekend day, or I might do a Christmas scene on a weekend with someone else. I'm unsure.
Yeah, because next Saturday is Christmas.
Yeah.
So you basically have 7 days, and New Year's at least should be a little bit easier. Because I mean, either you have stuff going on New Year's or you don't.
Agreed.
So
Like, the one thing I want to say, I want to talk about, right? And it's not me saying we'll cover it next week. Maybe, maybe not. But I want to talk about during Christmas time, at one point at time, is the movie Klaus.
oh yeah, I remember you having mentioned that earlier,
I
so that makes sense.
really want to cover that film. So, I want to do it during the holiday season, you know?
Yeah, well, it's relevant.
Of course. So, but, yeah, that's it really. Phil, anything else you want to say to the audience before you call it, I guess?
Stay in drugs, drink your school, don't do milk.
Exactly. Good life lessons. So, we're going to call it here. If I'm not back on air until after the holidays, I wish you all a very happy holidays and a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And hope you have wonderful times with friends or family. And we will be back maybe next week, maybe New Year week, maybe after holidays. Who the heck knows? We'll be back eventually, though.
We will be
care.
back eventually.
Exactly.
That's the closest we can get to you. That's our closest ETA. So thank you all for coming and watching.
And you can find everyone links that were in the episode below of the live stream. So you can find Tim and Phil for their respective links of Aggrobacon or Tim TK or Nonsurplus. And follow these two men. They're both great. And if we were on Twitch, I would rate him right now because he is on air, but I can't do that on YouTube. So go and watch Aggrobacon on Twitch. Right
He's
now.
live now. Yes.
And if you're watching this later, well then go and follow Aggrobacon on Twitch. So when he is live, you can
You'll
watch
be able
him.
to know.
Take care, everyone, and happy holidays. Peace. And now Phil is waving like